Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. Fantasy. It turns out that I am a peerless god of war. Chapter 31. Hearing this, Yi Feng, who was just about to get up and leave, moved his eyes. The author of Dream of Red Mansions. But not himself. Unexpectedly, this Mao Yun'er is still his own reader. Perhaps, the matter of printing books may have a turn for the better. After all, his financial situation is now beyond his means. Sure enough, hearing Mao Yun'er talking about the Dream of Red Mansions in front of Yi Feng, Mao Lin's face also became bright. He coughed twice, and said softly, "Yun'er, I said that I am receiving guests, you go out first." Mao Yun'er glanced at Yi Feng, puffed up her cheeks and stepped out. Seeing Mao Yun'er's exit, Mao Lin looked at Yi Feng with a smile on his face, and said with a smile, "Master Yi, to be honest, the little girl is indeed your reader. When I saw your Dream of Red Mansions, I forgot to eat and sleep." But having said that, he changed his words again. "But, as the pearl of our Chamber of Commerce, she has great responsibilities. It is really unethical and unprofessional to spend all her time on books about love and love. Let me tell you clearly, I don't want to help you print this or something, and it's partly because of my daughter, because as soon as your book comes out, she will be addicted to it again, so I hope you will take care of it." Hearing this, Yi Feng nodded, and without saying anything, he got up and left. "And many more." Morin shouted again. Yi Feng stopped and looked back at him. Mao Lin got up and walked towards Yi Feng, waving his hand at the same time. His subordinates walked out knowingly, and soon brought a jade plate with 2 rows of gold coins on it. There may be hundreds of them. Yi Feng looked at him suspiciously. "You saw it just now. My daughter is looking for you, the original author." Mao Lin took the jade plate and handed it to Yi Feng, and then said, "Don't tell your identity in front of my daughter. This is 100 gold coins. You take it." Yi Feng frowned slightly and looked at the jade plate. Hesitating slightly, he stretched out his hand and took only 10 gold coins from it, and then said, "These 10 are the herbal money from last time, and the others are unnecessary." After saying that, Yi Feng turned around and left. There is no need to say anything more. At the door, I met Mao Yun'er who was waiting, and Yi Feng nodded politely, which was a respect and gratitude to the reader's grandfather and parents. That's all. After Yi Feng left, Mao Yun'er went to find Mao Lin again. "Father, you agreed to introduce me to the author of A Dream of Red Mansions, why is there no news yet?" Mao Yun'er pursed her red lips and said coquettishly. "Yun'er, why don't you study business with the seniors of the Chamber of Commerce? What are you doing reading these books?" Mao Lin shouted softly. "Doing business in business, you know that you want me to do business. I don't like doing business at all. Besides, even if I want to do business, it doesn't matter if I read a book." Mao Yun'er said angrily with her jade feet chopped. "It's useless for you to say this. If you can't see him, he probably won't be publishing a book." Mao Lin said with a stern face. "Why?" Mao Yun'er asked anxiously. "A poor villager, if I hadn't helped him last time, how could he have the ability to publish a book?" Mao Lin said contemptuously. "Besides, this will not bring much profit to the Chamber of Commerce, so it will not be possible in the future. Worked with him. However, the sales of Dream of Red Mansions are obviously very good, and the Chamber of Commerce has also made a lot of money because of it." Mao Yun'er said unwillingly. "Why don't you cooperate with him? Although there are indeed a lot of profits, they are not the focus of our Chamber of Commerce. Compared with the focus, these profits are too meager." Mao Lin explained with a serious face, "And now it is the key to competing with the Baofeng Chamber of Commerce. During this period, the Chamber of Commerce does not allow distraction." It seemed that he wanted to say something when he saw Mao Yun'er. He waved his hand majestically and said, "Okay, I still have things to do, you take the young lady back to the room to rest." No matter how Mao Yun'er struggled, the 2 servants took Mao Yun'er directly. After Yi Feng walked out of the Chamber of Commerce, the autumn wind hit, and his figure was rather downcast. Life. It's not easy anywhere. It seems that if you want to make money by publishing a book, you can only find another way. As soon as I walked to the door of the martial arts hall, I saw 2 familiar figures, 2 big and 1 small, sitting in front of the steps of the martial arts hall, holding their chins in their hands, waiting for something. It was Luo Lanzu and Yin Luoli from Qingshanmen. They are cultivators, with extraordinary temperament and natural stunners, and their figures are graceful and graceful. Seeing Yi Feng coming back, the two girls greeted them with joy on their pretty faces. I have seen Mr. Luo Lanzu bowed, but did not dare to look at Yifeng. Yin Luoli was curious as the baby looked at Yifeng in general, because she had heard the master and sister say more than once that this person is a peerless person, and she must be polite and respectful when she sees it. It's two. Yifeng nodded and asked with a smile, Brother Qingshan, why didn't you come? Teacher, my uncle has been training at home recently, and he specially asked me to come and see Mr. First. Luo Lanzu stretched out a delicately packaged basket and said softly, this is the fruit picked from the mountains. We gave it to Mr. You're welcome, you're welcome. Yifeng took the fruit basket with a smile, and opened it to take a look. There were a few fruits that were as white as dolls, and they looked delicious. Seeing Yifeng's smile, Luo Lanzu also less restrained. I have to admit that it is really comfortable to be in contact with this senior. Thinking of this, she simply chatted with Yifeng and asked, where did you come from, sir? Me. Yifeng gave a wry smile and said, I have nothing to do, I wrote something to subsidize my family, but I couldn't find a place to publish it. Mr. publishes a book to subsidize the family, but can't find a place to publish it. Luo Lanzu was slightly startled. However, after thinking about it, I thought that Yifeng is extremely mortal and has always been reluctant to reveal his identity, which may cause such confusion. Sophisticated human feelings, firewood, rice, oil and salt, joy and sorrow, confusion and confusion, this is the real experience of life. For a while, Luo Lanzu seemed to have realized something. Sure enough, every time I contact Mr., there will always be unexpected gains. Sir, do you want us to help you? Luo Lanzu asked cautiously after calming down. Oh, Yifeng's eyes lit up slightly. That's right, Luo Li's father is the chairman of the Baofeng Chamber of Commerce, why don't we go look for him together? Luo Lanzu explained, after all, her husband is immortal. We'll break the rules. That's great. Yifeng's gloomy mood was instantly swept away. Hearing this, Luo Lanzu was overjoyed. At the same time, she is also looking forward to what book Yifeng wrote, but she thinks it must be a bestseller. On the side, Yin Luoli also smiled. She is young, but she is smarter than anyone else. If this Peerless Master's book is sold in her Chamber of Commerce, it will definitely be a great opportunity for their Chamber of Commerce. After sitting for a while, the three came directly to the Baofeng Chamber of Commerce. The one who received the three was the president Yin Shang. He was tall and red-faced, especially when he saw his precious daughter back, he was extremely happy. Of course, he was also very polite to Luo Lanzu. After all, Luo Lanzu is Yin Luoli's senior sister and the most beloved disciple of Qingshan Patriarch. I don't know who this is. Yin Shang looked at Yifeng and asked softly. This is Mr. Yi. Luo Lanzu quickly introduced, and at the same time, without waiting for Yin Shang to speak, she directly invited Yifeng to the seat. I have seen Mr. Yi. Yin Shang gave Yifeng a slight bow, and at the same time his eyes flashed, pulling Luo Lanzu aside. My niece, who is this Mr. Yi? He asked Luo Lanzu softly. As the chairman of the Chamber of Commerce, he had already become a human being after so many years. He could clearly see Luo Lanzu's respect for Yifeng just now. What's even more peculiar is that his always lively and naughty daughter Yin Luoli is extraordinarily well behaved in front of him. This made him have to become interested in the identity of this Mr. Yi. Luo Lanzu glanced at Yifeng, who was tasting the tea, and seemed to ask. After seeing Yifeng for a long time, there was nothing wrong with Yifeng, so she lowered her head and said to Yin Shang in a very solemn voice, Uncle, it is inconvenient for me to reveal Mr. Yi's identity too much, but you must remember that even if it is my master, in front of him you also have to respectfully call out Mr., and today may also be a great opportunity for your Baofeng Chamber of Commerce, so be sure to seize it. Hearing this, Yin Shang's body trembled. Suddenly he took a breath. He never doubted that Luo Lanzu was talking big, and he could feel the seriousness of the latter's tone. He never thought that Luo Lanzu would bring him such a big Buddha, a figure that the ancestors of Qingshan respected, then. As a mortal businessman, he did not dare to think about it any longer. But at least, he already knew what to do next with his attitude. Come here, the best dim sum in the Chamber of Commerce. Yin Shang waved his robe sleeves, and a group of pretty and beautiful maids lined up to serve dishes of dim sum, for fear of neglecting Yifeng. After some conversation, Yi Feng directly stated his intention. Publish a book. Hearing this, Yin Shang called the housekeeper up without any hesitation. Master, please order, the butler respectfully said. From today onwards, the Chamber of Commerce will do its best to help Mr. Yi publish the book. Whether it is typesetting, handwriting, or printing, we must do our best. If there is any mistake, I will ask you. Yin Shang directly instructed. Master, but the current focus of the Chamber of Commerce is on accessories, gold and silver, and supplies for cultivators. Once it relaxes, the Pingzhong Chamber of Commerce will invade the market, don't you think? The butler raised his head and said worriedly. I don't know this, so you have to say so much. Yin Shang suddenly got angry, slapped the butler directly in the face, and shouted, I asked you to focus on Mr. Yi's book, you can just do it, and you don't need to say more about other things. Yes. The butler's face changed with fright, and he didn't dare to speak, and hurriedly withdrew with his swollen face. President Yin, this is not necessary, it's your business association's original business. Yi Feng said flatly, he just wanted to make some money by publishing books, but he never thought of using the power of the Chamber of Commerce to help him. Book. What's the matter? To be honest, I like reading books. Besides, our Chamber of Commerce has already planned to develop in this area. Yin Shang said with a smile on his face. For a while, Yin Luoli and Luo Lanzu, who were watching, were startled. Yin Luoli couldn't help but slander. Why didn't I know that our Chamber of Commerce was going to develop in this direction? Yi Feng wanted to refuse, but Yin Shang's kindness was difficult, so he had to accept it calmly. I'm afraid this Baofeng Chamber of Commerce may really plan to develop in this direction. After leaving the Baofeng Chamber of Commerce, Yi Feng returned to the martial arts hall, and he felt a lot more relaxed. With the full operation of the Baofeng Chamber of Commerce, he must really be able to make some money, and he will no longer have to worry about this aspect. At the same time, Luo Lanzu and Yin Luoli also returned to Qingshan Gate, and reported the matter to Qingshan Patriarch in time. Good, well done, Ancestor Qingshan said with joy on his face, it seems that our relationship with Senior is getting better and better. It's just a pity that Senior borrowed my magic sword, but I didn't cut Xuanwu to the sword. Yeah, Luo Lanzu also sighed slightly, but still asked suspiciously, Master, you chased the Xuanwu ancestor Wan Yuli with the divine sword that day, depending on the situation, he will be killed by you no matter what. Under the knife, how could? Hey, the information about Xuanwu was wrong before. Old Ancestor Qingshan sighed. It was only after the real fight that I realized that he has been in Qingwu for more than 30 years. In addition, I am not strong enough to fully control the divine sword, and this has allowed him to escape. No wonder. Luo Lanzu just nodded her head. Her face was full of lingering fears. If it wasn't for Mr. Yi's divine sword, I'm afraid she would have lost her master when she was in the wind and rain that day. By the way, Shui, you hand over that person Jingguo to Senior. Seemingly remembering something again, the ancestor of Qingshan said quickly. A total of 8 have been handed over to Senior. Luo Lanzu said respectfully. That's good, that's good. Old Ancestor Qingshan nodded his head, then waved his palm, took out a jade box, and said, Shui, there is a human crystal fruit here, take it and share it with Luo Li. Bar. Ah, Master, how can this be done? This person has only 9 crystal fruits in 1,000 years. You should enjoy such a precious thing yourself. Luo Lanzu quickly declined. It's all right, I have been fortunate enough to have tasted one of the petals with your master for 1,000 years. Originally, 9 of them were to be given to Senior Yi, but I thought of you too, so I specially took one out for you. Old Qingshan Zhu said with a smile. Master, Luo Lanzu had tears in her eyes. Go on, I have to retreat as a teacher. When I go out, follow me to visit the seniors again. After saying that, the Qingshan ancestor had already closed his eyes. Yes, the disciple retire. Only then did Luo Lanzu hold the jade box in both hands and respectfully retreat. Time passed quietly. It is already late autumn. And Yi Feng's book has been successfully published under the full operation of Baofeng Chamber of Commerce. Martial arts. Yi Feng sat beside the bed and put his palm on Zhang Qing's forehead. Master, I'm fine. Zhang Qing opened his eyes and said, go and rest, I'll go to cook when I'm comfortable. You still said it's okay. Yi Feng's face sank, and he scolded lightly, look at your fever, look at your swollen hands and feet, lie down for me, and don't move anywhere. Yi Feng rarely got angry, which made Zhang Qing silently shut his mouth. Seeing this, Yi Feng sighed softly. It's just that he didn't put too much attention on Zhang Qing. This child practiced boxing all day, causing muscle strain in swollen hands and feet. With the addition of a cold, he was already haggard. After covering Zhang Qing with the quilt, Yi Feng walked to the front hall in a state of exhaustion, then carried the bamboo basket on his back, planning to go to the back mountain of Pingzhong City to get some medicine for Zhang Qing. Although the child Zhang Qing has known each other for a while, and even added a part of the financial burden to Yi Feng, since he came, Yi Feng does not need to do all the trivial matters by himself. In his heart, this child has long been part of his family. Before leaving, Yi Feng told the servant on the opposite side to take care of Zhang Qing. After all, he didn't know how many days it would take to go, and then walked into the mountain with a sickle. The so-called dead horse in Wangshan is exactly like this. It took 3 days for Yi Feng to reach the foot of the mountain. Fortunately, there are no big beasts in this mountain. Usually, you can rely on wild fruits and hairs to feed your stomach. The mountain springs can quench your thirst, and at the same time you are cooking medicine. Although you are tired, some of the strange beauty in the mountains is also a rare visual feast. And these days Yi Feng was in the mountains, Pingzhong City has set off a wave of chasing books. A book, Supreme Treasure and Zixia Fairy, was born. The love-hate relationship between the two protagonists in the book, by accident, has resonated with countless people, so the first edition released was swept away. This is not only for mortals, but even most of the female disciples of Qingshanmen are basically holding a book. Sir's book is really good looking. I am afraid that only a person like Mr. can write this kind of book. Luo Lanzu sat cross-legged on the top of Qingshanmen Mountain, with clouds and mists passing by, and her pretty body was looming and beautiful from a distance. But in 2 days, Luo Lanzu finished reading the book. When the book was closed, whether it was because of regret or reluctance to part with the story in the book, her beautiful eyes were filled with fog. Share. At this time, a figure fell beside Luo Lanzu. He brought his own power and looked at Luo Lanzu with his hands behind him. I have seen the sect master and senior brother. The person who came was Zhu Yun from Qingshanmen, and Luo Lanzu got up to meet him. Shui, why is Zongzong so neglectful recently, and there are no disciples cultivating in the martial arts field? As soon as Zhu Yun came out of retreat, he discovered that the Qingshan gate was unprecedentedly quiet, and there was no such bright scene in the past. As the gate owner, he naturally did not want to see this scene, and there was a trace of anger on his face when he spoke. Hearing this, Luo Lanzu gave a wry smile, and then said, reporting to the sect master, Senior brother, I'm afraid this has something to do with Mr. Yi's book. Mr. Yi's book. Zhu Yun was suddenly startled, stretched out his hand and said, do you have one? Luo Lanzu stretched out her jade hand. Zhu Yun took the book, held it in his hand solemnly, and asked, is this really written by Mr. Yi? Luo Lanzu nodded solemnly. Zhu Yun took a breath of excitement, and when the soles of his feet swept away, he reached the sky. Brother Yu, Luo Lanzu shouted, I'll be in retreat for 2 days. You can help me deal with things in Zongzong. I'll discuss it later. Zhu Yun's voice transmission came from the sky. Luo Lanzu was startled. Sect master senior brother, didn't you just come out of retreat? But the sky. No more echoes. Pingzhong Chamber of Commerce. In addition to the top executives of the Chamber of Commerce, Mao Lin sat on the top with a gloomy and scary face. President, think of a way. At this time, a high-level executive finally couldn't sit still and came out and said, as we all know, a city can only have one first-level Chamber of Commerce, and now it is just at the juncture of the ranking of the Chamber of Commerce. Yes, President. Another high-level executive came out and said, our competition with the Baofeng Chamber of Commerce could have remained on a par, and even in the market development of gold, silver, and cultivators, items, it was even better than the Baofeng Chamber of Commerce, but now the Baofeng Chamber of Commerce is even better. Relying on one, this month's revenue is just 20% higher than our Pingzhong Chamber of Commerce. If it is like this next month, then we can only hand over the title of this level of Chamber of Commerce. Yes, after that, we can only act according to the eyes of the Baofeng Chamber of Commerce. Even the pricing of items and the choice of the market will be given priority to them. Another person came out and said. For a time, everyone in the entire conference hall was worried. This made Mao Lin's face, who was sitting on the top, even more gloomy, and his palms clasped the seat even more. He originally thought that Yifeng's broken book would be able to sell 2 copies with his help, but who would have thought that the Baofeng Chamber of Commerce would become a fire in a blink of an eye. Not only that, but the Baofeng Chamber of Commerce relied on this to directly surpass his Pingzhong Chamber of Commerce by 20%. President, I heard before that it seems that the original author of this came to you before. At this time, a high-level executive asked Mao Lin. Mao Lin raised his eyebrows. It's okay not to mention this one, he almost had a heart attack when he mentioned this one. Yes, it was Yifeng who came to him first, but he handed over the way to make a fortune, which was even more uncomfortable than a dead wife. Immediately, his face was embarrassed, and he coughed twice before waving his hand and saying, "Don't be impatient, everyone, what has we not encountered since the establishment of the Pingzhong Chamber of Commerce? I will resolve this matter. Dare to ask the president how to solve it?" Someone asked. Obviously, although Mao Lin is the chairman of the Chamber of Commerce, he is not alone in the Chamber of Commerce. This matter has already aroused everyone's doubts. I have a little friendship with him about that author. If it's a big deal, I'll talk to him again and ask him to come back to my Pingzhong Chamber of Commerce to publish. Mao Lin said with an ugly face. President, people just started looking for cooperation with our Chamber of Commerce, we didn't want him, and now we call him back, is it so easy? One of them asked. Hearing this, other people's faces also showed worry. Having said that, Mao Lin's face is not good looking, but this is the end, even if it is not easy, he has to find a way to pull Yifeng back, otherwise the high-level Chamber of Commerce will question him, and he, the chairman of the Chamber of Commerce, can't stand it. Thinking of this, he waved his hand and said, "You don't have to worry about this. I said that I still have some friendship with him, and I will definitely let him come back, so don't worry." I hope so. Since Mao Lin has said so, everyone in the Chamber of Commerce can only temporarily choose to believe it, and then the meeting will be dismissed. Mufu Mountain behind Pingzhong City. At the top of the periphery, there is a courtyard, next to the courtyard is a 100-jong waterfall, and the flushing force condenses a crystal-clear water pool with green smoke curling next to the water pool, and there is another garden. On the jade stone, a woman in white stroking a long chin with the sound of the chin lingered around, attracting the fragrance of birds and flowers, like a fairyland on earth. Miss, a happy event. Just at this moment, a maid came running over with a face full of surprise. Mao Mao, didn't I tell you not to be impatient? The woman in white looked angrily at the maid who came over, and said softly. Miss, it's him who has published a new book. Mao Mao shouted, waving his arm and holding one in his hand. He, the author of A Dream of Red Mansions. Hearing the words, the woman in white hurriedly stood up to greet Mao Mao, quickly, Mao Mao, show me quickly. Miss HMPH, you still said I'm in a hurry, don't you think you're more anxious than me? Mao Mao said coquettishly with her little red lips. How dare you talk back, hurry up, prepare me a seat and prepare tea, and don't disturb me if it's all right. The woman in white hurriedly instructed the maid Mao Mao. A cup of tea, one sitting, the woman in white picks up the book for one day, from morning to evening. At this moment, she has already finished watching it. However, holding the book for a long time did not calm down, his eyes were full of emptiness, as if he was still in the love between the two of the supreme treasures and had never come out. If you give me a chance to start over, I will tell you, I love you, if you have to add a deadline, I hope it is 10,000 years. Such a sentence, what kind of person can write it? The woman in white whispered softly. Seeing this, Mao Mao rose up and said with a small mouth, Miss, you look like this again. The dream of red mansions made you sleepless and sleepless last time, but this time it's better, even your eyes are demented. You little girl, you're actually holding back. The woman in white drank lightly, carefully holding the supreme treasure in her hands, and her red lips moved slightly. A dream of red mansions, a book of supreme treasure. Mao Mao, you said, this gentleman must be a very gentle person, what do you think he looks like? After saying that, her crystal eyes flashed, and her face became longing. I do not know either. Mao Mao shook his head in distress. Ah, a sigh full of melancholy. Dong dong dong. Just then, there was a knock on the door. The woman in white frowned. Mao Mao was also full of doubts. They have never excelled in this place. Mao Mao, who are you? The woman in white asked. Ah, it's a young man, or a mortal. Mao Mao opened the door a crack, looked out the door, and turned back. Mortal. The woman in white frowned, and her jade lips said again, ask him what's the matter. It's said to be a lodging, miss, what do you think? Mao Mao's inquiring eyes looked at the woman in white. Let him come in, arrange a courtyard for him, and at the same time warn him not to run around at night. The woman in white ordered, and then she didn't pay any more attention, and then turned her attention to the book. Hey, come in. Mao Mao opened the door, and a young man with a tired face walked in with a bamboo basket on his back. It was Yifeng, who went into the mountains to collect herbs. He had his own tent, but he was unlucky. The sky was raining lightly, and the mountains were cold. Yifeng couldn't stand it any longer. Fortunately, in the depths of this mountain, there is still a family. Thank you. Yifeng quickly thanked him and walked into the door. As soon as he stepped into the door, Yifeng was attracted by the sight in front of him, especially under the waterfall. There was such a mundane woman sitting there. After the empty mountains and new rain patter. Returning to the nest at dusk, coming late to autumn. The screen in the quiet courtyard is 3,000 feet. The beautiful woman is beside the stone and plays the chin. In this situation, Yifeng couldn't help but borrowed ancient poems from his previous life to praise him. Of course, for the occasion, he also made some patchwork and adaptations. Otherwise, it would be inconsistent. However, as soon as the verse Yifeng was chanting fell, the girl playing the piano, who had never raised her head, suddenly looked over with a surprised look. She did not expect that an ordinary person in the mountains would actually write such verses. After the empty mountain and the new rain pattering, return to the nest in the evening and autumn comes. The screen of the quiet courtyard is 3,000 feet, and the beautiful woman is next to Shi playing the piano. Involuntarily, she also moaned softly. After reading it, he couldn't help but nod his head, and for the first time looked at Yifeng with serious eyes. Body. There is really no cultivation base at all. Mortal, no doubt. Under the drizzle, the green shirt was slightly damp, but not embarrassing. On the contrary, it gave people a very clean feeling. I have to say that this mortal made her feel very comfortable. It was also the first time that she had slightly changed her traditional concept of mortals. Ordinary people, not all of them. She thought of this, and at the same time Qiancheniu put away the book, and said with red lips, young master is a good poem. The little girl is grateful. You're welcome, girl. Yifeng cupped her hands at her, and followed Mao Mao to the residence before resting. It's settled, the woman in white asked softly. Miss, settling. Mao Mao walked back, then opened his mouth in surprise and exclaimed, Miss, isn't what you wrote the poem he wrote just now? The woman in white nodded lightly, and the jade hand wrote down the poem that Yifeng had just written. Hey, miss, you don't like this mortal, and you actually wrote his poems. Mao Mao said in surprise while covering his mouth. What are you talking about? The woman rolled her eyes at Mao Mao, and Qianyu put down the pen. I just think that his poem is really suitable for us here. I always felt that we were missing something here. With this poem, it is perfect. So after the ink dries, you decorate it and hang it up. The young lady also said that she didn't like that mortal, but also hung up his poems. Mao Mao covered his mouth mischievously and smiled. You girl, if you talk nonsense again, be careful, I'll hit you. The woman in white pretended to knock Mao Mao, and said at the same time, no matter how good a mortal is, he is only a mortal, and it is very different from me. Besides, how can I fall in love with a person based on a poem alone? Again, Qian Yin hesitated to speak, but did not say any more, but just tightened the dream of red mansions and the supreme treasure in her hands. Yes, even if Miss wants to like it, she also likes the author of Dream of Red Mansions and the Supreme Treasure. She will not like this kind of ordinary people. Mao Mao said meaningfully with a mischievous look. Shut up. The woman tapped Mao Mao's little head, and at the same time said with a pretty face and worried, but you say, will he be immortal too? Well, Mao Mao thought with a sullen little head, I don't think it should be, You see, although the characters in that supreme treasure are not the same as our cultivation methods, aren't they also very powerful? Even if they want to fabricate it, they are sure you must have a certain understanding of cultivation to write this kind of book, right? Right. The woman glanced at Mau Mau with admiration, and she also thought it was like this, pure love. Maybe it was written by mortals, but the supreme treasure is also a world of cultivation, and the characters in it are thousands of miles away. There is even a top treasure such as the Moonlight Treasure Box. How can such a world be written in the eyes of a mortal? Na Mau Mau, from today onwards, you will help me find this gentleman with all my strength. I want to see him as soon as possible. The woman explained softly. Okay, miss, I know what you're thinking, and I'll send the letter out right away. Mau Mau covered his mouth and chuckled, and then he retreated. In the room, Yi Feng changed his clothes and wiped it, and then he felt a lot more comfortable. Afterwards, another hare was caught from the bamboo basket and came to the open space in front of the house. After rushing for a day, the oil and water have not entered, and now I have settled down, and I have to treat myself well. Immediately, the grill was set up. Soon, a fragrant rabbit was roasted by Yi Feng, oily but not greasy, especially after Yi Feng sprinkled the seasoning, it exuded a tempting fragrance. Incense. After smelling it, Yi Feng was not in a hurry to eat it. After all, the food just baked was very easy to get angry. Instead, he dug a small hole on the ground and took out the pheasant that had been wrapped in lotus leaves from the bamboo basket and buried it, went in. Then, another grilled fish was forked. In a short time, the grilled fish was cooked through, and the skin of the fish was crispy and looked appetizing. The beggar chicken was also unearthed, and the fragrance was overflowing. Although he is only a mortal, Yi Feng has never been ambiguous in his treatment of his own life. One more pot of good wine, it's really nice. Yi Feng also took out the wine gourd, everything was done, and Yi Feng clapped his hands with satisfaction. A chicken leg and a sip of wine, Yi Feng was satisfied. Although it is late autumn, there are still many small animals in the mountain, and there are bursts of cicada-like cries, and many moths come to the fire. Yi Feng raised his head. The bright moon hangs high, the bright moon is in the sky, and after a few sips of wine, although not drunk, but also a little drunk. In my heart, I actually remembered my hometown in my previous life. The long-lost high-rise building in the summer, the city's busy traffic, the King of Glory and the League of Legends who forget to sleep and eat, as well as his family, brothers and friends from previous lives. Look up at the bright moon, look down at your hometown. Yi Feng raised his glass to invite the moon, his eyes were filled with fog at some point. Young master is not only good at writing poetry, but also seems to be a person with a story. Outside the courtyard, two figures appeared, and a voice came out. When the voice fell, the chill in the woman's eyes also quietly dissipated. In fact, the two have been observing for a long time. Here in Shogun Mountain, the stakes are very important. On the surface, the two women love to be clean and play in the mountains and waters, but secretly they are stationed here to prevent all accidents. In the past 2 years, Yi Feng has never entered a stranger. Yi Feng made such a big commotion. Even if he was just a mortal, he would have already attracted the attention of the two women. But now, it seems that she is the two of them worrying too much. It turned out to be two girls, I laughed. Yi Feng hurriedly bowed, and at the same time invited the two women into the fire, apologizing, it's good that I didn't disturb the two of you. I originally wanted to arrange these foods for the two of you, but since we're here, why don't we eat together? The woman in white glanced at Yi Feng. For some reason, she had a different feeling towards this mortal young man. She, who was not interested in these mortal grains, actually sat down. Under Yi Feng, dare to ask the two young ladies your surnames. Yi Feng asked politely. Bai Piao Piao. This is my sister Mau Mau. The woman in white said softly. I've seen the white girl, the fluttering girl. Come on, eat something. Yi Feng nodded, then wrapped it in lotus leaves, tore off 2 pieces of meat and handed it to Bai Piao Piao and Mau Mau. Hey, your stuff is so greasy and looks so dirty, my lady doesn't eat it. Mau Mau said with a frown. Mau Mau must not be rude. Bai Piao Piao taught a lesson softly, then looked at Yi Feng apologetically and said, since it was made by Mr. Yi himself, then Mr. Piao Piao will thank him. After all, Qian Qian Yu took the chicken handed over by Yi Feng, but only tore off a small piece and put it into Yin Dao's small mouth. Obviously, she wasn't too interested in Yi Feng's food, and she tore off a piece just out of courtesy to Yi Feng. But when the delicious food was put into his mouth, the calm Bai Piao Piao beautiful eyes twitched slightly. "My son, this food is so delicious." She couldn't help but admire. Originally, based on her cultivation, she had long stopped eating fireworks, but the chicken that was just crisp and tender, with both taste and texture, aroused her appetite and couldn't help tearing off a small piece. "Ah, miss, is it really delicious?" Mao Mao was a little unconvinced. Because she knew Bai Piao Piao better than anyone else, but she had never been a person who had no appetite, but she could not help but be shocked when she gave such admiration. "So, I quickly tore off a small flap. Hey, it's really delicious." Mao Mao is a straight-hearted girl. The moment the delicious food reaches the tip of her tongue, her big eyes can't help but light up. Smiled. Yi Feng nodded calmly. The performance of the two women did not exceed his expectations, but was within his expectations. Most of the people in this world are busy cultivating and making a living. They don't even have salt and MSG except for simple seasonings. This is the first time I tasted the food from the country on the tip of my tongue, and this reaction is really normal. Yi Feng's blandness made Bai Piao Piao a little impressed. She seldom praised others. In the past, countless outstanding disciples in her sect could get her to take a look, and she couldn't help but flutter. But this mortal didn't take it seriously. Dressed. She watched him, with a sincere face, eating your own food, drinking your own wine, immersed in your own emotions. Not installed, not the slightest contrived either. Moreover, his eyes were pure, his words were not frivolous, and he didn't even take a second glance at her beauty. This mortal is really interesting. Bai Piao Piao looked at Yi Feng, her red lips raised unconsciously, and suddenly asked, "What do you think of me, young master?" "Wei quality orchid heart, gentle and honest." Yi Feng smiled. Bai Piao Piao raised her eyebrows and said, "You know that's not what I'm asking about." Yi Feng shook his head helplessly, and said, "Beautiful like a god, a country and a city." Bai Piao Piao covered her mouth and smiled. "Does that boy like it?" Asked this sentence, Bai Piao Piao's pupils shrank slightly, observing Yi Feng. "Like." Yi Feng nodded sincerely. Yi Feng's answer surprised Bai Piao Piao, who said so unabashedly, "Unexpected." She couldn't help but ask again, "Why?" "A slender lady, a gentleman is so arrogant." Yi Feng took a sip of wine and said bluntly, "It's a slender lady, and a gentleman is so arrogant." Bai Piao Piao couldn't help but exclaimed, admiring this mortal in his heart. She asked again, "It's just that I can't figure it out." "What? Since the sun likes me, why don't you give me a second look?" Bai Piao raised the corner of his mouth and asked, "Could it be that the sun was lying just now?" Yi Feng shook his head helplessly. "That's just what I like, the girl is not mine." And one more sentence. "What? See no evil. Young master really impresses me." The golden sentence is frequent. Bai Piao Piao couldn't help getting up, and bowed slightly to Yi Feng. "I have to say that the little girl has learned a lot from master today." "You're welcome, girl." Yi Feng also got up and nodded slightly. And the golden sentences of praise frequently appeared, and he was happy to accept them. 5,000 years of cultural heritage. This is just the tip of the iceberg, although these sentences are not from him, but it can be regarded as his welfare as a traveler. "It's very comfortable to be in contact with the sun." Bai Piao Piao praised. Yi Feng just smiled, and while chatting, Bai Piao Piao also unknowingly finished tearing up her chicken leg, and Yi Feng ripped off a few pieces of fish meat for her, which was regarded as a compliment. On the side, Mao Mao's mouth was full of oil, but he was stunned to hear the conversation between the two. It was the first time she had seen her own lady and praised a person so much. "Listen to the poem that the sun just read. The sun should not be a local." Bai Piao Piao asked again. "Yes, and not yet." Mentioning this, Yi Feng couldn't help but sigh, looking at the bright moon, thinking of his hometown again, and couldn't help taking a long sip. "Really, young master is a man with a story." Bai Piao Piao looked at Yi Feng's slightly dejected side, and couldn't help but become interested in a mortal person, and asked softly, "Young master's story, would you like to tell Piao Piao?" "I don't want to." Yi Feng refused directly. "Ah." Bai Piao Piao twitched her mouth. She had never been rejected by anyone, but she didn't expect Yifeng to reject her so neatly. This kind of rejection was really uncomfortable. Yifeng just glanced at her apologetically and didn't explain anything. His story goes too far, too far. It was another world, another civilization. Besides, this is also the biggest secret in his heart, apart from the tasteless system. It's rather abrupt. That son, sit down first, so I won't disturb you. Bai Piao Piao said softly, and took Mao Mao to stand up and leave. But as soon as she got up, she stopped. He turned around and asked, by the way, does the young master read books? Book, don't see. Yifeng shook his head apologetically. Oh, all right. Bai Piao Piao nodded, and the first time he looked at Yifeng, his eyes were dim and disappointed. Although Yifeng is a mortal, she has rarely met such a person, and even she does not object to being a good confidant with him. I thought Yifeng would read those 2 books too. Pity. After 3 rounds of food and drink, Yifeng leaned on the railing and stayed there for a long, long time. It's midnight. Yifeng only returned to the room, dug out the dream of red mansions that was brought by the bamboo basket, and slept deeply under the hard bed board. The next day, Yifeng got up early, found Bai Piao Piao and Mao Mao, and was also preparing to leave. Young master, if you don't have a place to live in the mountains next time, you can still come here. When saying goodbye, Bai Piao Piao said this after careful consideration. Thank you, Miss Piao Piao. Yifeng nodded to the 2 women, turned around and left with the bamboo basket on his back, setting foot on the road down the mountain. Miss, why do you want him to come? Mao Mao asked in confusion. Bai Piao Piao smiled. Yifeng is just a mortal, and it will not affect or threaten their plans. Moreover, his self-cultivation and knowledge made Bai Piao Piao sincerely admire him. Although admiration for a mortal person may seem far-fetched, it seems to be the case. Therefore, she did not exclude the arrival of this mortal. Unfortunately, he doesn't read books. Otherwise, there should be more common topics. Okay, but it's good for him to come. The fish was really delicious last night. Mao Mao smiled mischievously and coveted the delicious food again. Okay, hurry up and clean up the room he lived in. Bai Piao Piao said angrily. Mao Mao stuck out his tongue and obediently went to clean up the room. But after a while, he ran back and shouted, Miss, come and see. What's the matter? Bai Piao Piao stood up and frowned. Miss, come and see, that mortal stole your book. Mao Mao shouted loudly. What? Bai Piao Piao's face turned cold, and a pressing aura emanated from his body. His pretty body turned into an afterimage, and he came to the front of the room in an instant. The door is pushed open. The 2 walked towards the bed. Sure enough, at the head of the bed, there was a dream of red mansions. Seeing this, the chill on Bai Piao Piao's pretty face became more intense, and there was a trace of killing intent in her aura, as if her favorite treasure had been sullied. Wrong. But in the next moment, she realized that something was wrong. She swept away and returned to her boudoir. When she came back, she was holding another dream of red mansions in her hand. Ah, miss, 2 dreams of red mansions, what are these? Mao Mao looked at the dream of red mansions in Bai Piao Piao's hands, and suddenly opened his mouth wide. We misunderstood young Master Yi. Bai Piao Piao put away the chill on his face, and compared the 2 dreams of red mansions in his hands one by one, and immediately found that the 2 copies of Dream of Red Mansions were different in terms of newness and oldness. It seems that this Dream of Red Mansions was left by young Master Yi. Bai Piao Piao's tone was a little surprised. So young Master Yi also read this book. But didn't he say last night that he didn't read books? Mao Mao asked suspiciously. Bai Piao Piao nodded. She was equally puzzled, and whispered softly, maybe, it's young Master Yi who has something to hide. Oh, Mao Mao nodded. I didn't expect young Master Yi, as a mortal, to have so much in common with me. She stroked the 2 gently, also remembering the mortal man who invited the moon with wine last night, and explained softly, Mao Mao, will the young master's dream of red mansions will be kept and returned to him when the young master comes next time. Okay. Mao Mao hurriedly took over the dream of red mansions, looked at Bai Piao Piao again and said, Miss, looking at you, you don't really think about that mortal last night, do you? Bai Piao Piao shook her head and smiled bitterly. How come? Although he is talented, he is still far from everyone who has created dream of red mansions and supreme treasures. I just have a lot of common topics with him. Besides, he is just a mortal. Oh, all right. Mao Mao nodded, and she didn't understand her young lady, so she quickly said, then I will send a letter quickly to find the person you said as soon as possible. ... The mountain road is rough. After 2 days of bumping in the mountains, Yi Feng finally collected the herbs he needed. Of course, in addition to what Zhang Qing needed, Yi Feng also collected a lot of other things. In general, it was a full harvest. After a few days of running around, I finally rushed back to the martial arts hall. Zhang Qing's condition did not improve, on the contrary, it became more serious. Yi Feng couldn't take a rest, so he quickly gave Zhang Qing a decoction. After drinking the medicine, Zhang Qing's fever and legs were relieved a lot, and Yi Feng was relieved. Is Mr. Yi there? But as soon as he sat down, a shout came from outside the door. Yi Feng walked out the door, only to find out that it was the butler of the Baofeng Chamber of Commerce. The butler saw Yi Feng and his respect, not to mention the respect of Yi Feng, the chairman Yin Shang, Luo Lanzu and others. The benefits generated by the Fengsheng Association are worthy of him. Oh, it's you, what's the matter? Yi Feng asked with a slightly tired face. Mr. Yi, this time I'm here to give you the share of the book sales. The housekeeper said respectfully, and then took out an exclusive card of the Baofeng Chamber of Commerce from his arms and handed it to Yi Feng. Sir, there are 100,000 gold coins divided into last month. Because I am afraid that it is difficult for me to store it, it is stored in our Chamber of Commerce. You can use your VIP card to withdraw money at our Chamber of Commerce at any time. Of course, we will give you statistics on the day of each month in the future. For the monthly share, all the money will be stored in a lot of money on Mr. S card. Although he knew that the two of them should be talking about books, when he heard the number, Yi Feng couldn't help but startled and asked, how much did you say? 100,000. Listening to Yi Feng's question, the butler nodded, but his heart suddenly burst. Is Mr. too little? But he didn't dare to talk too much, so he hurriedly retired and went back to report to the Chamber of Commerce. After the housekeeper left, Yi Feng recovered and looked at the card in his hand in disbelief. For a moment, he laughed. He just wanted to subsidize his family, but he never thought of writing a book to become a god. This time, he received 100,000 gold coins, which was enough for him for many years. And what's even more incredible is that it's only a month away. It's just so beautiful. He walked back to the martial arts hall with a face full of joy, but just turned around, and another shout came from behind, Master Yi. Looking back, he found that Mao Lin from the Pingzhong Chamber of Commerce came with two people smiling. President Mao. Yi Feng frowned slightly, but nodded politely, I don't know if President Mao has anything to do with me. Cough cough. Mao Lin coughed in embarrassment, and then said with a smile on his face, Master Yi, to be honest, I came here this time to apologize to you for what happened last time. Saying that, he waved his palm. The two behind them opened the box, revealing golden coins. A whole 1,000 gold coins, please accept Yi Gongzi with a smile. Hair. Lin Wei waved his hand and smiled arrogantly, and at the same time looked at Yi Feng meaningfully. 1,000 gold coins, he couldn't believe that he couldn't impress Yi Feng, this is the income of an ordinary person in a year. Yi Feng frowned and looked at Mao Lin with meaningful eyes. Oh, Mr. Yi, you're welcome. Seeing Yi Feng seemed to be frightened, Mao Lin raised his chest slightly and said, although 1,000 gold coins is indeed a lot, you shouldn't have any burden in your heart. Your apology, just accept it. Heard. The meaningful emotion on Yi Feng's face was even more serious, and he said straight to the point, President Mao should say something directly. Cough, then I'll just say it. Coughing, Mao Lin said with a smile, since you left that day, I have thought about it, now is the era of cultural renaissance, which coincides with the development of our Chamber of Commerce, so I plan to continue with Master Yi. You cooperate and use the strength of the Chamber of Commerce to help you publish the book. Yi Feng's eyes moved slightly. Immediately understood the purpose of Mao Lin's visit, I am afraid that he realized that his supreme treasure could bring benefits to the Pingzhong Chamber of Commerce, and it really was the weasel who came to the door and was uneasy and kind. This old scoundrel. Involuntarily, Yi Feng raised the corner of his mouth and asked leisurely, President Mao's words are bad, you told me that day that there is no benefit in publishing the book, so I think Chairman Mao still regards the interests of the Chamber of Commerce as the first priority. Oh God. Mao Lin was embarrassed by what Yi Feng said, and quickly explained. Look, didn't I say something wrong that day? How could Master Yi take my nonsense to heart? I believe it, Master Yi is sure not a stingy person. No, I just take Chairman Mao's words to heart. Yi Feng raised his eyes and said bluntly, and I, Yi Feng, are a stingy person. You. Yi Feng's words made Mao Lin annoyed and said with a livid face, what do you mean? I really think our Chamber of Commerce must have you. I tell you, if you don't cooperate with our Chamber of Commerce, do you think your book can? What are you selling for? Then it's even better since the Guild of Commerce does not have to be me. Yi Feng sneered, turned around and walked away, waving his hands, then please come back. Don't. Yi Feng's words made Mao Lin's heart hurt. He originally wanted to provoke Yi Feng, but he didn't expect that he would not eat this set at all, and his face was full of smiles again to hold Yi Feng. How come President Mao is still pulling it up? How are you doing? Yi Feng tilted his head and asked indifferently. Mao Lin let go of Yi Feng with an ugly face, and after hesitating, he said, in this way, you can directly ask for a price. How can you cooperate with my Pingzhong Chamber of Commerce? Not interested in. Yi Feng refused directly. 2,000 gold coins. Yi Feng said nothing. 3,000 gold coins. Yi Feng remained silent. 10,000 gold coins. Finally, Mao Lin gritted his teeth and shouted a big number. President Mao, there are not so many regret medicines in the world. Yi Feng was too lazy to entangle with Mao Lin, and said directly, besides, I am a stingy person, I can remember the humiliation you gave me that day, so please come back. Yes, I really shouldn't have said that day, I can understand you to remember me. Mao Lin didn't expect Yi Feng to be so indifferent, and said with a livid face, but you shouldn't have a hard time with money, it's 10,000 yuan. Gold coins, 10,000 gold coins are the money you haven't earned in 10 years, if that's not enough, your appetite is too big, right? Having said that, he narrowed his eyes and said, aren't you afraid of killing yourself? Mao Lin's words made Yi Feng smile. He raised his eyes and asked, is 10,000 gold coins a lot? Boy, you are so loud. Mao Lin said with a sullen face, not to mention 10,000 gold coins, even 500 gold coins, you may not be able to get them out. Is it? Yi Feng raised the corner of his mouth. Chapter 41. Say it. Yi Feng took out the card that the steward of Baofeng Chamber of Commerce had just given him. To be honest, if I used to bow down for 5 buckets of rice, but now 10,000 gold coins are really nothing to me. Saying that, Yi Feng didn't forget to shake the card in front of Mao Lin's eyes. Humph, Mao Lin scoffed, but the next moment, his eyes caught the card waving in Yi Feng's hand. That exclusive color and pattern. What? Mao Lin's face changed greatly. As the chairman of the Pingzhong Chamber of Commerce, how could he not recognize the exclusive deposit card of their nemesis, the Baofeng Chamber of Commerce? This kind of deposit card is similar to their Pingzhong Chamber of Commerce and is divided into different levels. As for the deposit card in Yi Feng's hand, he could see at a glance that it was a high-level deposit card of the Baofeng Chamber of Commerce, and with such a card, at least 100,000 gold coins were stored in it. In other words, Yi Feng had at least 100,000 gold coins. Thinking of this, Mao Lin felt like a fishbone stuck in his throat, unable to say a word. How about Chairman Mao? Seeing Mao Lin's aggrieved look, Yi Feng narrowed his eyes and asked with a pure smile. You won, Mao Lin's face turned blue with anger, he almost spat out a mouthful of old blood, and shouted, let's go. Looking at Mao Lin who left in despair, Yi Feng put away the deposit card in disdain. It's cool to slap the face with money. Of course, Yi Feng never wanted to pretend to be arrogant, and even that day Mao Lin didn't want to send him a book, he would have no opinion, and he understood it because of his position and the interests of the Chamber of Commerce. But he shouldn't, belittling Yi Feng's efforts, and humiliating him with 100 gold coins. Man, you can be poor, but you must not be poor. So this time when Mao Lin came, Yi Feng naturally wouldn't give him any good looks. Mao Lin returned to the Chamber of Commerce with a dark face, and the high-level officials of the entire Chamber of Commerce were waiting for him. When he knew that Mao Lin had returned without success, the pressure of everyone rushed towards him. President, didn't you swear before that you would definitely invite the author back? Yeah, last month the Baofeng Chamber of Commerce surpassed us by 20%. If it continues this month, let's not mention the benefits it brings to the Baofeng Chamber of Commerce. Just its influence and reputation will crush our Pingzhong Chamber of Commerce. If Baofeng Chamber of Commerce wins the first place in the ranking of the Chamber of Commerce, then you Maolin is the sinner of my Pingzhong Chamber of Commerce. A series of rude voices came, and Maolin was devastated, but in the face of their pressure, even as the president, he couldn't ignore it. He could only forcefully say, "It's just one failure, what's the matter, I have my own way." After the meeting, Maolin returned home, sitting on the head and frowning tightly. Finally, he shouted, "Come on, call the lady to me." After a while, Mao Yun'er, who was wearing a red dress with a beautiful figure and bare feet, walked in and asked softly, "I don't know what my father wants to do with me." Cough, Yuna. Seeing Mao Yun'er's arrival, Mao Lin put away the gloom on his face and said with a smile on his face, "Tell you good news, the author of the Dream of Red Mansions has been found. By the way, let me tell you at the same time, the author of the Supreme Treasure is also the same." 1. Real. Mao Yun'er's pretty face was startled, her face full of surprise. Good. Mao Lin nodded, and then asked, "Yun'er, let me ask you, do you like this person?" Hearing this, Mao Yun'er blushed pretty and lowered her head and said, "Father, although I have never seen him before, he has an excellent literary talent and works by everyone. I think he must be a kind, refined and gentle gentleman." Seeing Mao Yun'er praising Yi Feng so much, Mao Lin's face was a little gloomy and uncertain, but he quickly put it away and said gently, "Yun'er, whatever you like as a father will support you, and literature is indeed a charming thing, so if you have something to pursue, go for it with confidence and boldness." "Thank you, father." Mao Yun'er's pretty face was excited, thinking that she would soon see everyone who made her think about it. Her pretty face was blushing unconsciously. "Okay, you go down, I will tell you his identity information and address later, take the time, you can visit him." Mao Lin ordered. "Yes, father." Yun'er retire. Mao Yun'er said softly. "Correct." When Mao Yun'er left, Mao Lin couldn't help shouting again. "Kindness." Mao Yun'er turned back. "Remember to dress up nicely, and your skirt is too long. Most literati don't like it very much." There is a strange, dark hall in all directions. At the bottom stood two powerful, expressionless masters. After a while, a middle-aged man with white hair came with a heavy aura. He was not angry and arrogant, and the masters who came out the moment all bowed their heads. "Meet the sect master." "Meet master." The white-haired man was expressionless, and after slowly taking his seat on the upper throne, Ling Li's eyes looked at the lower crowd. Everyone didn't dare to breathe, and their bodies leaned even lower. After a long time, the white-haired man waved his hand, and everyone stood up in relief. It could be seen that he had absolute authority here. It's a pity that now his right arm sleeve is empty. He was the ancestor of the Xuanwu sect, Ning Xuanwu, who had a duel with the ancestor of Qingshan. And the people who started are all high-level Xuanwu sect and Ning Xuanwu's direct disciples. Since the defeat of Ning Xuanwu, the morale of the Xuanwu sect has been low, and everyone who sees him at this moment is even more afraid to say anything. A dead silence. "How's it going?" Finally, Ning Xuanwu's majestic eyes swept over, and a hoarse voice came out of his mouth. When the crowd heard the words, they remained silent. Seeing this, Ning Xuanwu got angry and shouted, "I ask you, how is the investigation? Who can tell me how the kitchen knife in Lu Qingshan's hand came from?" "Master, I have caught a direct disciple of Qingshanman here, maybe I can get a clue from him." At this time, a woman with a hot body, scantily clad, and holding a pair of knives came out and said respectfully, "She is Yao Linger, a direct disciple of Ning Xuanwu. Not to mention her extraordinary talent and strong combat power, the most unavoidable thing is her hot body and beauty. Countless enemies who have fought against her have been fascinated by her beauty, but once he takes it lightly, he will be greeted by Yao Linger's double-edged lore. Bring it up." Ning Xuanwu waved his hand. "Yes." Yao Linger swept out of the hall like lightning, and when she reappeared, she was holding a white-robed youth in her hand. "Let go of me, let me go." The white-robed youth shouted rebelliously, "You dare to arrest me if you don't know who I am, but I am Yu Wuji, a direct disciple of Qingshanman. It will suffer a devastating blow from Qingshanman." Snapped. Yao Linger slapped Wuji's face. "You, how dare you hit me?" Yu Wuji was instantly furious. He was so big and no one had ever beat him before, which was a shame. But what greeted him was Yaolinger's palm, which made him fly upside down to the ground. He was even more humiliated, and when he got up, he wanted to fight back, but found a white-haired man above his head, looking at him indifferently. "Who are you?" Yu Wuji shouted. "Ning Xuanwu." What? Yu Wuji was shocked. He never thought that the man in front of him was actually the ancestor of Xuanwu, so wasn't he caught in the Xuanwu sect? "Let me ask you, where did Lu Qingshan's knife come from?" Xuanwu Patriarch asked in a hoarse voice. "Why should I tell you?" Although he knew it was Ning Xuanwu, Yu Wuji still shouted rudely. Ning Xuanwu raised his eyes and said solemnly, "Aren't you afraid of me?" "Why should I be afraid of you? It's just a defeated general of my sect patriarch. I advise you to let me go quickly, or my patriarch will come with a magic sword and you will be doomed." Yu Wuji shouted threateningly. "Road." "Very good," Xuanwu Patriarch said lightly. In the next instant, an invincible aura erupted from him, and Yu Wuji, who was on the ground, was suddenly sucked into the air. "I'll ask you again, say it or not," Xuanwu Patriarch said hoarsely. "Don't say it," Yu Wuji said uncompromisingly. The ancestor of Xuanwu narrowed his eyes and grabbed Yu Wuji's neck with a movement of his palm. The powerful force immediately exposed Yu Wuji's blue veins. At the same time, a huge coercion was also squeezing Yu Wuji's body. "Ah, I was wrong, I said." Feeling the real death coming, Yu Wuji didn't insist for a moment, and quickly begged for mercy. Boom! Ancestor Xuanwu moved his palm, and Yu Wuji fell heavily to the ground. When everyone saw this, they immediately showed contempt. They thought it was a hard bone, but it was a waist that was softer than a persimmon. Cough cough cough. Yu Wuji coughed hurriedly, seeing that Xuanwu Patriarch was impatient. He quickly said, "I don't know if what I said is accurate or not, but I got news from my master that it was a high school in Pingjiang City. People get it." The masters of Pingjiang City. Xuanwu's ancestor was angry. He stepped on Wuji's chest, and said solemnly, "How can there be masters in Pingjiang City?" "Really, I dare not lie to you, and my master also said that he opened a small martial arts hall in Pingjiang City, which is absolutely true." Yu Wuji shouted. "Little martial arts hall." Ancestor Xuanwu saw that Wujia didn't seem to be lying, so he let go of him. After returning to the top, he frowned and pondered. After a while, he said solemnly, "Wuchen, go to Pingjiang City to inquire." "Yes, master." A thin young man with a sick face walked out, and then his body flashed and he went down the mountain. "You, go back to Qingshanmen and report back at any time if you have any news." Ancestor Xuanwu slapped Yu Wuji on the chest. Yu Wuji opened his mouth in pain, an ice cicada flew into his mouth, and was then thrown out. "Master, wouldn't it be bad to ask senior brother Wuchen to go alone?" Yaolinger asked worriedly as she looked at the old Xuanwu ancestor who frowned. "It's okay." Xuanwu ancestor waved his hand. "Aren't you afraid of any danger from senior brother Wuchen?" Yaolinger asked with a frown. "Junior sister, don't worry." At this moment, a man in a long robe came over and said, "I see that the master of Pingjiang City is just a blinding method released by the Qingshan Gate, and asked Wuchen junior brother to go. The solution couldn't be better. Can." Yaolinger seemed to be worried, and looked at the ancestor of Xuanwu. "Don't worry so much," Xuanwu ancestor said. "I have my Zhenshan stone in Wuchen's hand. Even if there is any accident, the Zhenshan stone can keep him safe, so we just need to wait for Wuchen in the sect." News. Hearing this, Yaolinger breathed a sigh of relief. With the earthquake stone in hand, then she really doesn't need to worry. This is one of the few treasures in the hands of the Xuanwu ancestor. In less than half a day, Jing Wuchen arrived at Pingjiang City. Although Pingjiang City is close to Shushan Zongmen, there are more mortals, so there are many large and small martial arts halls in this city. However, for Jing Wuchen, this is not a problem, and the problem he solved is simple and rude, killing him directly. He walked out of a martial arts hall with evil charm and cold blood on his sick face, and everyone in that martial arts hall was slaughtered and empty. He rushed to the next martial arts hall. After killing dozens of people in the martial arts hall, he stepped on the owner of the martial arts hall under his feet and said coldly, "Tell me, what is your relationship with Qingshanmen?" I really have nothing to do with Qingshanmen, sir, please forgive me." However, before he finished speaking, a cold light passed by his neck. "It's really boring," The bewitching face flickered with impatience, his tongue licked the blood on the dagger, and after smashing the head of the master of the martial arts hall with one foot, he continued to go to the next martial arts hall. In this way, according to the map of Pingjiang City, Jing Wuchen slaughtered one martial arts hall and one martial arts hall, and Feng Guan, men, women and children, left no one behind. Teacher, I bought you some candy, you can take it with the medicine. Yi Feng walked back from the outside with a face full of spring breeze, big bags and small bags. Yi Feng was also meticulous about this disciple. Thank you, master, for your concern. Zhang Qing's face was full of gratitude, and there were mists in his eyes. From the time he could remember, apart from his parents, only Yi Feng was really kind to him, and he also secretly remembered this kindness in his heart. Ouch! However, as soon as he entered the door, Yi Feng stumbled over the steps and almost fell to the ground. Master, are you okay? Zhang Qing hurried over and supported Yi Feng. Tai Niangs, this is a broken design. Yi Feng gave the stairs a blank look. This was not the first time he tripped over the stairs. The design was simply tiring. You take one step at a time, it's too short, like a girl, you have to take small steps. You step on 2 steps in 1 step, pull your hips, it's even more uncomfortable. Master, wait for me to finish this step tomorrow. Zhang Qing said quickly, thinking for Yi Feng from the bottom of his heart, and he was also very keen to do things for Yi Feng. Good boy. Yi Feng patted his head and said, you are just getting better. You can talk about these things when you get better later. Let's go and take the medicine first. Afterwards, the master and the apprentice walked into the inner courtyard. Watching Zhang Qing finish the medicine, Yi Feng was relieved, lying on the reclining chair and roasting the little sun. Recently, he is in a good mood. Zhang Qing is cured. He is also rich. It's just a bit boring, and it seems that I have become a salted fish. Dog, come here. Yi Feng beckoned to Ao Qing, and the dog came running with its tail wagging, lying under Yi Feng's feet obediently, letting Yi Feng rub it. Street. A gust of breeze blew, and the leaves were blown messily. A figure landed in front of the martial arts hall. He raised his scrawny palm and looked at the map. He narrowed his eyes and said, the last few martial arts halls are getting smaller and smaller, which is really disappointing. Saying that, he licked his tongue and walked towards the martial arts hall in front of him. This broken martial arts hall doesn't even have a name. It's no surprise that it's garbage. While walking, Jing Wuchen looked at the martial arts hall. Suddenly, his footsteps stopped. His eyes fell on the only word on the plaque. Wu. He frowned, always feeling that the plaque was hiding something, but after observing for a long time, he found nothing. Involuntarily, he smiled disdainfully. With a wave of his hand, a powerful shot of energy shot out towards the plaque with the word, Wu. The palm fell, he didn't look at it again, and stepped directly into the martial arts hall. Because of a broken plaque, under his means, there was no other end, only smashing. It's just that he didn't know that his energy, not only did not cause any damage to Wu Zibian, he didn't even leave a trace. After walking into the front hall, Wuchen slammed out with a palm, wanting to destroy the front hall first. But when his palm with strong vitality was shot, it failed to cause the slightest movement. On the contrary, the 18 pictures hanging on both sides of the wall suddenly emitted a dazzling light. Afterwards, nothing remained: knives, spears, swords, halberds. 18 weapons suddenly condensed above his head, covering him with an aura of destruction. Wuchen's already morbid complexion suddenly changed drastically, and under the pressure, his complexion suddenly turned as white paper. He understands that he has encountered a shocking crisis. Without the frivolity in his heart, he did not dare to be careless at all. Almost immediately, he took out the Zhenshin stone given to him by the Xuanwu ancestor. As soon as the shocking stone came out, it immediately exuded a dazzling brilliance. But in just an instant, under the coercion of the 18 weapons, it became bleak and dull. What? Wuchen was shocked, and there was no longer any means of defense, so he could only watch the 18 weapons descend on his head, getting closer and closer. Between the electric, light and flint, the 18 types of condensed weapons passed by. Jing Wuchen could even make a scream, and it was immediately wiped out, leaving only the shocking stone that landed on the floor with a quack. What sound? The drowsy Yi Feng was about to fall asleep. He was awakened by the sound and sat up. Then he took Zhang Qing to the front hall, and found that the hall was empty except for a stone much larger than the slab. Wipe! What incompetent fool is throwing stones at Lao Su's house? Yi Feng scolded, and when he got closer, he found that the floor had been smashed and collapsed, and he felt distressed. Unqualified shit, I curse you to give birth to a son without ass. Unable to find the rightful master, Yi Feng could only scold people and complain. After complaining, he instructed Zhang Qing, "Teacher, help me throw this broken stone out." "It's master." Zhang Qing picked up the stone and walked outside with difficulty. After taking 2 steps, he seemed to remember something and said, "Master, I think the size of the stone is quite suitable, why don't I carry it to the door to fill in the steps?" Hearing what Zhang Qing said, Yi Feng's eyes lit up. "Don't say it, it's true." Thinking of this, Yi Feng nodded and instructed, "That's fine, just leave it at the door, this unqualified son of a fool can be considered a shade of willows." But this is also a stock for Yi Feng. He has always been easy to deal with, and he has never had a grudge against anyone, so why would someone throw such a large stone at his martial arts hall? Can't figure it out. Can't figure it out. Because Zhang Qing was completely healed, Yi Feng spent the next few days teaching Zhang Qing new boxing techniques, but he didn't go out much. Xuanwuzong. Yao Linger came to the main hall and stood respectfully in front of Ning Xuanwu. "Master, senior brother Wuchen has been gone for so many days, there is no movement at all, something is wrong," Yao Linger said uncontrollably. Hearing this, Ning Xuanwu frowned slightly. It stands to reason that after so many days, there should be news about Jing Wuchen no matter what, but there is no letter at all, which is indeed a bit abnormal. "Wufeng, you go down the mountain to have a look, find Wuchen to join together, and then come back and report to me." Ancestor Xuanwu looked at the man in the cape beside him and commanded in a deep voice. "Yes, master." Jing Wufeng nodded respectfully, waved his cloak behind him, and disappeared in the main hall. Jing Wufeng came all the way to Pingjiang City. Then he also started from the martial arts hall, but the martial arts halls he had visited had already been slaughtered. It's the means of Wuchen Jr. brother. As long as you follow the inspection of the martial arts halls one by one, you can find the traces of Wuchen Jr. brother. Jing Wufeng's pupils shrank slightly, the cloak moved behind him, and the whole person turned into a wind and disappeared in place. His speed is even higher than that of Jing Wuchen. Even in the same level, there is no rival in speed. Even if someone can detect his whereabouts, they will not be able to see his true body, only one can see the cloak swept past. Cloak of Swiftness. It is also one of the treasures in Ning Xuanwu's hands, which can greatly increase a person's movement speed and attack speed. Relying on this swift cloak, Jing Wuchen, as a junior, has a place even in the entire Nansha region. "Master, the people from the Baofeng Chamber of Commerce are here, please go to dinner," Zhang Qing said respectfully. "Okay, tell him to wait at the door, you change clothes and go with me." Yi Feng packed up a little, put on a white robe, and walked out the door with Zhang Qing. Outside the door, the steward of the Baofeng Chamber of Commerce had already prepared a sedan chair, waiting for Yi Feng. Good treatment. Yi Feng was not polite, and stepped directly into the sedan chair. Before leaving, he waved Tao Qing at the door and shouted, "Wang Kai, keep me safe at home, especially when I meet Xiao Xiao who throws stones, bite him to death for me." After the explanation, the group went directly to the Baofeng Chamber of Commerce. Before the people arrived, all the senior officials of Baofeng Chamber of Commerce, including Yin Shang, were waiting respectfully here. Of course, besides that, Luo Lanzu and Yin Luoli were also here. "President, I think it is necessary to adjust the share ratio for Mr. Yi." "Yes, I also think it is necessary. It is now rated by the Chamber of Commerce. Mr. Yi is a timely reign for our Chamber of Commerce. Let's not talk about profits. The influence and reputation alone can give our Chamber of Commerce a lot of points." In the first episode, Yin Shang took a sip of tea and said, "Last time, the housekeeper also came back and reported to me that Mr. Yi was reluctant to share the 100,000 gold coins, so I also wanted to give Mr. Yi a bonus." Quote, "Okay, then I propose," a high-level executive said. "Except for the cost, our Chamber of Commerce only accounts for 10%, and the rest will be given to Mr. Yi." "Yes, I agree with this move. This wave seems to be a profit transfer, but our Chamber of Commerce has gained a reputation. After all, the rating is not solely based on profit, but more on reputation and influence. Another senior said. As the two of them spoke, others also agreed, basically the same thing. Yin Shang looked at Yin Luoli and Luo Lanzu on the side. He seems to be in control of the overall situation, but he knows that he has no decision-making power at all in this matter. He had long known from Yin Luoli and Luo Lanzu that this Mr. Yi was no ordinary person at all. It is very likely that it is a peerless master who has hidden the world and turned into a mortal. With this kind of mastermind, he can only speculate as a mortal, and can only seek the opinions of Yin Luoli and Luo Lanzu, so this is the reason why he invited the two women. The two nodded, no opinion. Okay, that's the decision. Seeing that the two women had no opinion, Yin Shang made the decision directly. Outside the door, Yi Feng had already arrived. Please come in, sir, the butler said respectfully. Polite, Yi Feng lifted up his robe, stepped down from the sedan chair, and then walked towards the Baofeng Chamber of Commerce with his little apprentice Zhang Qing, while the housekeeper trotted ahead to report to the chairman. This Baofeng Chamber of Commerce is really big. Yi Feng looked around with emotion. In the front hall, there were countless waiters and a steady stream of customers purchasing items. On the side, Zhang Qing also looked around curiously. Yi Feng. At this moment, a voice came, which caught Yi Feng's attention. Looking away, Yi Feng frowned slightly. Peng Ying. Why are you in such a place? Seeing Yi Feng again, Peng Ying's face was a little complicated. Why can't I be in a place like this? Peng Ying's words were rather harsh, which made Yi Feng feel a little amused. I don't mean anything else. Peng Ying explained. I just. Forget it, there seems to be nothing to talk about between us. Yinger, why is this trash again? At this time, Yu Wuji, dressed in white, came with his sword in his arms. He looked gloomy when he saw Yi Feng, especially when he remembered that Peng Ying must have been slapped by Yi Feng. He killed him. Straightforwardly, he asked solemnly, didn't you say that you have already made a clear relationship with this waste? Brother Wuji, listen to my explanation. Peng Ying quickly grabbed Yu Wuji's arm and hurriedly explained, I just ran into him here by chance. No need to explain, let me kill him directly. Yu Wuji's face turned cold, he suddenly pulled out the long sword in his hand and waved it towards Yi Feng. And just at this moment, everyone headed by Yin Shang rushed out to meet Yi Feng, and just saw this scene. What? Yu Wuji's actions can be said to stimulate everyone's nerves. Especially Luo Lanzu and Yin Luoli, their hearts were stuck in their throats. They were not afraid of Yi Feng's accident, after all, they had Wu Ji's ability. They were afraid that Yu Wuji would offend Yi Feng because of this, and thus angered the entire Qingshanmen. You must know that the ancestor of Qingshan carefully maintained a relationship with Yi Feng, for fear that he would be neglected. Qingshanmen will probably face extinction. Stop. Almost at the same time, Yin Luoli and Luo Lanzu shot, and the two women were one after the other, and two thick palm prints patted Yu Wuji. Division. Yu Wuji was also shocked when he saw the two girls. After all, according to his seniority, the two girls were much taller than him, but before he could call them, he encountered the attack of the two girls head-on. Bump. The two palms smashed Wujia into the air, hitting the ground heavily. Division. Yu Wuji got up and was about to speak, but was greeted by the devastating attack of the two women. It is hard to imagine the anger in their hearts at the moment, and they are also afraid to consider the consequences of this matter. Not to mention, if Qingshan Patriarch finds out about this, it may cause a major earthquake in Qingshanmen. Just sitting up, Yu Wuji was slapped flying again, spitting out blood from his mouth. Me, why are you attacking me? He looked puzzled. But as soon as the voice fell, Luolin Shuiyu's hand came out, and a green sleeve was pulled out like a long snake around Wujia's neck, and he was lifted directly into the air. Qingshan palm. When he was in the air, Yin Luoli turned over his jade palm, and a thick palm print slapped directly on Yu Wuji's chest. What? Yu Wuji screamed, his chest suddenly collapsed, and he fell heavily to the ground. This still did not let the anger of the two women dissipate, and the three-footed breeze was pulled out from the two women's sleeves, and it was close to Wujia's neck. Aside, Peng Ying's frightened face turned pale, and she covered her red lips with her hands for a while, not knowing what to do, and she didn't understand what happened or why it happened. Yi Feng's eyes flashed with light. It was the first time he had seen a cultivator take action at such a close distance, and he was really powerful. Especially this Luo Lanzu. She looks quite powerful, and it's not in vain that the old man from Qingshan has no food to eat and wants to send her to practice. I have to say that the two women were still very moved for him. Kneel down. The cold voice came from the mouths of the two women, and there was no doubt that the next moment would directly kill Yu Wuji. Me, what did I do wrong? Yu Wuji's mouth was dripping with blood, his eyes were blurred, and he looked at the two girls with a sluggish breath. He was unwilling to ask questions. Although you two are higher in seniority than me, you can't bully people like this, right? Dare to be tough. Hearing this, the two girls were not angry. What else did he do wrong? His sword almost wiped out the Qingshan gate. There was no repentance for such a big mistake. The two women slapped Wujia in the face, without giving any face. For a time, Yu Wuji was directly beaten into a pig's head by the two women, and lay dying on the ground. Seeing this, the two women hurried back to Yifeng's side, and said apologetically, "Sir, I'm really sorry to have surprised you." After speaking, the two women lowered their heads. Yin Shang and the others on the side didn't dare to breathe. Who would have expected such an accident to happen? However, Peng Ying on the side was shocked when she saw this scene. Why? 10,000 doubts rose in her heart. The identities of Luo Lanzu and Yin Luoli are unknown in Qingshanmen, and her role is only a little transparent in front of the two women. And they are so respectful to Yifeng, a mortal. It even seemed that they fought against Wujia because of the man she abandoned. Why exactly? Peng Ying's heart became a mess, and there was a feeling of fog in front of her eyes, making her unable to see or understand. I also hope that Mr. will never take this matter to heart. I will report this person to the sect, and I will definitely give him an explanation. Luo Lanzu said with her head lowered nervously. Good talk, good talk. Yifeng waved his hand and smiled. Although he was very angry with Wujia, he was relieved for a while after seeing his miserable situation. At the same time, I also appreciate Qingshanmen very much. This style is really good. I have heard before that the Qingshan Gate has a ban, and it is not allowed to shoot at mortals. I didn't believe it much before, but now it seems that it is really the case. Under the cautious attitude of a group of people, Yifeng was invited into the inner hall to take a seat. However, it's fine to hand over the reception of Yifeng to Yin Shang. Luo Lanzu and Yin Luoli have more important things to do. The two women walked out with cold faces, looking at Yu Wuji, who was like a dead dog on the ground, with murderous intent flashing in their eyes. Senior sister, what should I do? Yin Luoli asked. After all, he is the disciple of the third elder. We can't do it without authorization. After returning to the mountain gate, we will report to the master before making a decision. Luo Lanzu said with a cold face. Yin Luoli nodded, and then looked at Peng Ying again. Then what will she do? Luo Lanzu's expression sank, her eyes pressing on Peng Ying, and she walked towards her. Peng Ying couldn't bear Luo Lanzu's aura. She only felt a big stone pressed against her chest, and she retreated with a pale face. Name, Luo Lanzu said coldly. Report to Lord Luolin, disciple Peng Ying. Peng Ying's tongue was knotted when she spoke at this moment. She had seen Luo Lanzu's momentum there, and hurriedly saluted. In front of me, you little disciple, why don't you kneel? Luo Lanzu glanced at Peng Ying and said coldly. Peng Ying shivered, she didn't dare to question and knelt down, her head bowed in cold sweat, and she felt extremely uneasy in her heart. Report other information. Luo Lanzu raised her pretty face and said coldly. Disciple Wyman Xuantang Peng Ying, under the management of Wyman Elder Fang, has just joined Qingshanmen for a month. Peng Ying did not dare to say anything. Hearing this, Luo Lanzu's icy eyes moved slightly and shouted, Palm. What? Peng Ying was startled. Luo Lanzu ignored her, grabbed her arm directly, a burst of energy poured into it, and then her face was covered with frost. The qualifications are not enough to enter my Green Mountain Gate. Who is so bold to let you join the Green Mountain Gate without authorization? Luo Lanzu asked in a cold voice. Peng Ying's body trembled, frightened. From today, you have been expelled from Qingshanmen. Luo Lanzu's face was flickering with indisputable expression. Her words were nothing like a trial. Like a lightning strike, it poured directly into Peng Ying's mind. Peng Ying's expression suddenly turned pale and became bloodless. My heart is full of unwillingness. In order to join the Qingshan sect, she made countless sacrifices, and now she was expelled with a single sentence. How could she be willing to shout hysterically, "Why? Is it because of that mortal, that Yifeng?" Snapped. Hearing Peng Ying's impolite address to Mr. Luo, Luo Lanzu moved her palm, and a strong energy was drawn directly on Peng Ying's face. Warning: don't ask what you shouldn't ask. If you're not qualified to know, you'd better be in awe. Luo Lanzu gave her a cold look, and with a wave of her jade hand, the token hanging on Peng Ying's waist was directly shattered. From this moment on, she was no longer a disciple of Qingshan sect. Not qualified. Seeing the back of Luo Lanzu leaving, Peng Ying, who was slumped on the ground, hugged her swollen face. Her body was trembling, her face was full of unwillingness, and she murmured, "No, no, I must find out what this is. What happened?" Wong Wong Wong. Ao Qing was lying in the front hall, and any strangers who approached the door would bow and grin hoarsely. He has now fully taken the role. Sometimes he even forgets that he is the sky-devouring demon wolf, which can be said to be devoted to his duty. Now that Yifeng has followed him for a long time, the 18 pictures in the front hall will no longer be hostile to it. For this, it is also a little proud. This must be the senior's approval of it. At this moment, a gust of wind hit. Ao Qing raised his head, and found a man in a cape in front of the martial arts hall. Ao Qing's pupils shrank as he sat up. Because in this person, I felt obvious hostility and pressure. Jing Wufeng looked around with sharp eyes, and when he moved his palm, a burst of vitality spread out, causing him to frown. Why did I feel the breath of Wuchen's junior brother here, but I couldn't see the junior brother's people? And this martial arts hall was not slaughtered. It seems that junior brother is very likely here. His eyes narrowed slightly, and his pupils locked on the small martial arts hall in front of him. Get out of the way, out of the way. At this moment, a peddler pushing a scooter passed by, and when he saw Jing Wufeng blocking the road, he hurriedly shouted. There was a flash of malice in Jing Wufeng's eyes, and with a wave of the cloak behind him, the hawker screamed, and the whole person disappeared, leaving only a solitary bus that turned over on the ground. Hiss. Ao Qing was taken aback, knowing that he was not his opponent, so he quickly hid in secret. A blind mortal, Jing Wufeng muttered disdainfully, and then walked towards the martial arts hall, unaware that he was stepping on the gentian stone, and stepped in one step. Anything unusual? As soon as he walked in, he felt a little weird in the front hall, but he didn't change his color, but the cloak moved in front of him. HMPH, it's just a little trick, but that's it. But as soon as his voice fell, the whole person's face changed, and the 18 pictures of weapons suddenly exuded golden light, covering the sky and destroying the earth towards him. What? Feeling the aura of destruction, his face changed greatly, his cloak waved, turned into a streamer and rushed out of the door. But even if he was very fast, even if he escaped from the door, he still couldn't escape the disaster. On the ground. Even this bone, it was only left by Jing Wufeng's cultivation of some kind of strange cultivation technique, otherwise it would not even leave scum. Whirring. Ao Qing saw this scene the whole time, his eyes fell to the ground, and his heart almost jumped out. It's really terrifying. At the Baofeng Chamber of Commerce, Yifeng was still drinking with Yin Shang and others. Yifeng is happy. Unexpectedly, the Baofeng Chamber of Commerce gave him another 100,000 gold coins today. After dealing with Peng Ying and Yu Wuji, the two girls, Luo Lanzu, also stayed by Yifeng's side throughout the whole process. Seeing that Yifeng did not take Wujia's affairs to heart, the two felt that their predecessors were really open-minded, and at the same time, they felt in their hearts. He also breathed a sigh of relief. Finally, after he was full of food and drink, Yifeng took his little apprentice Zhang Qing home. When I got home, I didn't let them give it away, but took Zhang Qing to the downtown area. After all, I have money, so why not splurge? Niece, is there really nothing wrong with today's affairs? On the other side, after Yifeng left, Yin Shang asked Luo Lanzu worriedly. This senior has always been open-minded, don't worry, even if something happens, our Green Mountain Gate will solve it. Luo Lanzu comforted softly. Yin Shang just nodded, suddenly remembered something, and asked, by the way, niece, Mr. Yi's book has been on fire recently, but there are a lot of people secretly inquiring about Mr. News, do you see? Luo Lanzu's pupils shrank slightly. After thinking for a moment, he said, Mr. publishes a book just to experience life, not for any fame and fortune, and he likes to be clean, so please don't leak the news of your husband, in case your husband is disturbed, you and I are unforgivable. Quote. Yin Shang took a deep breath. Some fear. There are indeed many people who have inquired about Yi Feng's news. Of course, most of them are admiring him. Originally, he thought it was nothing, but now listening to Luo Lanzu, it is true. Fortunately, no information about Mr. Xuanwuzong. Yao Linger closed her eyes and practiced, but she was always upset and felt that something was about to happen. Thinking of this, she came to Ning Xuanwu and said respectfully, Master, I always feel that we are a little hasty this time. Ning Xuanwu, who closed his eyes and practiced, opened his eyes and looked at Yao Linger. Just say something. Yes, Master. Yao Linger frowned and said, our guess was that the expert in Pingjiang City was a cover-up from Qingshanmen, so we directly sent senior brother Wuchen to investigate. But the two brothers Wuchen have always been in a straight line, and they are likely to kill them directly because of their personalities. If that expert is really as blind as we guessed, it's nothing but if. Having said that, Yao Linger's gaze turned to Ning Xuanwu. Really? Ning Xuanwu's eyes suddenly picked up. He also immediately understood the seriousness of the matter. If what Yu Wuji said was true, and it wasn't a cover-up for Qingshanmen, then Wuchen and Wufeng would kill him. Just imagine, who can create that kind of magic weapon, how can they be ordinary people, and how can they be opponents based on Jing Wuchen and Jing Wufeng alone? So Master, I think it's better for my disciples to go down the mountain to find out. Yao Linger said softly. Go. Ning Xuanwu waved his hand, and after Yao Linger left, he wanted to continue practicing meditation, but when he remembered what Yao Linger said, he also became guilty. Riding the night, at dawn, Yao Linger had already rushed back to Pingjiang City. Her behavior is not as good as the two of them, but she went directly to the restaurant, grabbed one of them, and found out the news. In addition to the few remaining small martial arts halls in Pingjiang City, all other martial arts halls have been slaughtered. After a little thought, Yao Linger knew that the problem was in these small martial arts gyms, and it was just a few small martial arts gyms, and it was easy to investigate with her ability. Yi Feng also took Zhang Qing outside for a whole night, and when the sun was shining brightly the next day, the two returned to the martial arts hall leisurely. Prosperity, prosperity, I brought you something delicious. Yi Feng took out a package and threw it to Ao Qing. Ao Qing ran over, not thinking about eating, but thinking about how to report what happened yesterday to Yi Feng. Seeing that Ao Qing didn't seem to be interested in food, Yi Feng was a little surprised at first, but soon found the answer. At the door, there is a snow-white bone. It must be where the dog stole it from. You can tell by looking at the meat on it. In addition, Yi Feng also found a piece of rag on the front hall, and it is estimated that the dog came back from a lump. Well, Yi Feng didn't blame it. He who had raised Erha in his previous life knew that this was nothing, and he was quite obedient without tearing down his family. Come on, take this bone away. Yi Feng waved at Ao Qing and instructed. Ao Qing's expression froze. Looking at Yi Feng's appearance, it seems that he disapproves of this bone. Shouldn't be. After all, I was called on the door, so I have some reaction, right? Could it be that he already knew what happened yesterday? Thinking of this, Ao Qing glanced at Yi Feng with deep meaning. He found that the more he came into contact with this person, the more elusive he became. At the same time, he also remembered that when he was able to see that scene yesterday, was it specially arranged by the seniors. He didn't forget Yi Feng's explanation to him before going out. Thinking of this, Ao Qing was extremely frightened, and a wave of fear poured out. If this is the case, it means that this senior beat him. If you are not obedient, it is likely to be the same fate. Thinking of this, he quickly picked up the bone with his mouth, ready to deal with it. Seeing that the dog was quite obedient, Yi Feng nodded, picked up the rag on the ground, and shouted to Zhang Qing, Teacher, the house has not been cleaned for a long time, just use this rag to wipe the house. Don't miss the pillars outside the door and the plaques. Yes, Master. Zhang Qing respectfully did so. At the same time, an enchanting figure fell on the door of the martial arts hall, and all this fell into his eyes. Looking at all this, the demon spirit at this moment seems to have lost his soul. The eyes are red, his feet were too heavy to lift, and at the same time there was a strong sense of fear. She was absolutely certain that the two senior brothers were already dead, and even the bones could not be recovered. The martial arts hall in front of him, seemingly unremarkable, hides absolute murderous intent, a place that can eat people without spitting bones. Puff. Finally, she was in a hurry to attack her heart, spitting out a mouthful of blood, her long jade hand resting on the wall next to her, a coquettish face full of pale white. Yi Feng, who was instructing Zhang Qing to clean up, happened to see this scene, hesitating for a moment and walked towards Yao Linger. Girl, how are you? Yi Feng showed a gentle smile and asked softly. He guessed that the daughter of some family on the street was sick, and the neighbors could help if they could. Yao Linger wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth, looked up suddenly, and saw Yi Feng's face. In an instant, her complexion changed, her face was extremely pale, and she stepped back 2 steps in fear. Although this face showed ordinary, even with a gentle smile, but in her opinion, behind this smile, there was another face of fear. She didn't forget that it was this person who ordered the boy to wipe the dust with a swift cloak, and it was this person who used the bones of her Wufeng senior brother as pet rations, and the shocking stone at the door that was used to fill the steps was probably also the same. The man's arm. Devil. This is the definition of Yi Feng in her heart. Is it really all right? Why don't you come into my house and sit? Yi Feng asked with concern. No need. As soon as Yi Feng called her into the room, Yao Linger's pretty face changed dramatically, full of panic, and she hurriedly left with heavy footsteps, ignoring the heavy damage caused by the rapid-fire attack. Now, she just wants to escape from this place, she just wants to escape the sight of this human being, she just wants to hurry back to the Xuanwu sect and report the matter here to Ning Xuanwu. Do I look so scary? Looking at Yao Linger's hurried footsteps, Yi Feng touched his face, full of confusion. After leaving from Yi Feng, Yao Linger rushed back to the Xuanwu sect almost non-stop. When she returned to the Xuanwu sect, even with her cultivation level, she was close to collapse at the moment. The disciples of the Xuanwu sect were surprised when they saw Yao Linger's anxious and embarrassed appearance. Usually to them, Yao Linger is Ning Xuanwu's direct disciple, aloof, beauty and wisdom coexist. Where have you seen her panicked appearance? The news of Yao Linger's return quickly reached the ears of the high-level officials, so when Yao Linger rushed back to the main hall, all the high-level officials including Ning Zan Wuzai were already sitting and waiting. What happened? Ning Xuanwu furrowed his brows tightly, his gaze pressed against Yao Linger. Looking at Yao Linger's appearance, he also had a bad premonition in his heart. Master, Senior Brother Wuchen and Senior Brother Wufeng. Yao Linger's eyes turned red, her seductive body trembled, and the fear in her eyes had not disappeared. What happened to them? Ning Xuanwu's pupils shrank and asked in a deep voice. The two senior brothers have been killed by the man in the martial arts hall. Yao Linger's voice was trembling, full of grief and anger. What? Hearing this, the expressions of everyone in the Xuanwu sect, including Ning Xuanwu, changed drastically. Then, how did they die? Ning Xuanwu suppressed his anger and asked in a hoarse voice, I want you to tell me all the details you know. I don't know. Yao Linger shook her head sadly and said, but I only know that Senior Brother Wuchen has no bones left, so Senior Brother Wufeng has practiced the magic in the sect, and there is still a bone left. Yao Linger's voice fell. The entire hall fell into a dead silence. It can be said that the entire Xuanwu sect, apart from Yao Linger, Jing Wuchen and Jing Wufeng, are the future hopes of the Xuanwu sect. But now that the two are together, only one bone remains. This news was a huge blow to Xuanwuzong. What's even worse is that Senior Brother Wufeng will be humiliated when he dies, and the only bone left is used by that person as his pet's ration. Yao Linger bit her red lips tightly, and said in a hateful voice, when she thinks of the dog with the bone in her mouth, she can't breathe. That is the senior brother who grew up with her since childhood. Boom. As soon as the news fell, Ning Xuanwu couldn't keep his composure either. He fell with a palm, and the stone table next to him instantly shattered. The monstrous anger spread over him. It's just too deceiving. The two direct disciples died so tragically, and they were treated as pet rations after they died. For him, Ning Xuanwu, it was a great shame. This palm down made everyone dare not breathe. Then, what about my two treasures? Finally, Ning Xuanwu asked in a deep voice. At this moment, there was only Ning Xuanwu's voice in the entire hall. Chapter 51. Those two treasures. Ning Xuanwu's question made Yaolinger's face even more ugly, and he said hesitantly, those 2 treasures have been, by. What happened? Ning Xuanwu's face sank, and he asked in a hoarse voice. Knowing that he couldn't hide it, Yaolinger glanced at Ning Xuanwu, and even guessed his furious appearance. After taking a deep breath, she said solemnly, I hope Master don't get angry, your shocking stone, it has already been used by that gangster to fill the steps. What? As soon as he heard the words, Ning Xuanwu really exploded. He stood up with a strong momentum all over his body, stared at Yaolinger and asked word by word, you said that my heaven-shattering stone, the treasure of my Xuanwu sect, was taken by him. Are you going to fill in the steps? Seeing her master's furious appearance, Yaolinger felt uncomfortable in her heart, but that was the truth. She had no choice but to nod her head and said, yes, master. Not only did the Gentian stone be used by him to fill the steps, but the speedy cloak was also used by him. Speaking of which, the nerves of everyone present were a challenge. Focus on Yaolinger. Ning Xuanwu trembled even more, his eyes shrunk into pinholes. The swift cloak was also used by him as a rag to wipe the dust. Yaolinger lowered her head, and there was almost no sound at the end of her words. When Yaolinger's words fell, Ning Xuanwu was stunned on the spot. On the cloudy face, the muscles couldn't help twitching. Too much deception, too much deception. The rage in his heart suddenly burst out on Ning Xuanwu at this moment. Boom, boom, boom. Around him, Qi Jin suddenly exploded, a series of sonic booms sounded, and countless items were turned into powder. A disciple has no bones left. A disciple's skeleton was used as pet food. The Gentian stone was used to fill the steps, and the swift cloak was also used as a rag. Rough, tough, tough. It's so cruel. For a time, because of Ning Xuanwu's cultivation, he couldn't control his emotions at the moment. His whole body was trembling, and his mouth was hoarse and hateful, and he counted all the crimes of that person. If my disciple is really offended, I can forgive you if you beat me up, but why should I humiliate them if they have no bones left? The 2 treasures of my Xuanwu sect will also be used by him to blaspheme like this. It's like rubbing my Xuanwu sect on the ground. It's tolerable, but it's unbearable. As soon as his words fell, everyone in the entire Xuanwu sect burst out with hatred, and they became eager to move. Master, this person is more abominable than that. At this time, Yaolinger said with hatred, if it wasn't for me being a little careful, I went through a disguise before going, and I went through various disguises, so that he didn't know that I was a member of the Xuanwu sect. I'm afraid I would also trapped in his hands. What, are you ready to kill them all? The anger on Ning Xuanwu rose again. The order goes on, all the masters of Xuanwu sect will come down the mountain with me. I want to slaughter this scoundrel with my own hands, avenge Wuchen Wufang, and at the same time bring back the 2 treasures of my Xuanwu sect. Ning Xuanwu waved his hand and immediately ordered. Yes, the sound resounded throughout the hall. The Xuanwu sect has long been ignited by hatred, and at this moment, Ning Xuanwu's words suddenly set off everyone's enthusiasm for revenge. With an order, all the experts of Xuanwuzong went down the mountain. Master, I don't think it's good for us to rush down the mountain like this. After arriving at Pingzhong City, Yaolinger said with a worried expression. What's wrong? Don't you want to avenge such a big revenge? Ning Xuanwu said with a grim expression. What's more, my 2 great treasures are still in that person's hands, so don't you just leave it alone. No, master, you misunderstood. Yaolinger quickly explained. Vengeance is going to be avenged, and the 2 great treasures are bound to be retrieved, but we came to the door aggressively. What if the other party is prepared? Senior brother Wuchen and Wufang are the lessons from the past. I think it's better for us to think long-term. Hearing this, Ning Xuanwu's brows furrowed. He had been dazzled by hatred before, but after Yaolinger reminded him, it was really true. By the way, haven't you been in contact with him? Ning Xuanwu asked in a deep voice, then what kind of strength is he? Hearing this, Yaolinger frowned. Her eyes were even more solemn. She looked at Ning Xuanwu solemnly, and then said, Master, this is why I remind you to think long-term. His strength. Having said this, Yaolinger took a deep breath and said solemnly, I can't see through. Can't see through. Ning Xuanwu's brows could not help but lock. Yes, and it's not just the kind that can't be seen clearly, but the kind that can't capture his breath at all. Yaolinger recalled back then, frowning and said, if I hadn't seen him holding it with my own eyes, the swift cloak is used as a rag. Knowing that the two brothers died in his hands, I am afraid I will think he is immortal. Yao Linger's words made Ning Xuanwu frown even tighter. Looking back now, he realizes that he overlooked a big problem. Since Wufeng Wuchen could be easily wiped out by him, it means that Yu Wuji did not lie that day, nor was it a smoke bomb released by Qingshanmen. This means that the terrifying knife in Lu Qingshan's hand may have been created by this person. If this is the case, will his Xuanwuzong call at the door have any effect? Will he Ning Xuanwu be this person's opponent? The answer is obvious. All the knives he made can make Lu Qingshan chase him for 3,000 miles, and the real strength is probably against the sky. A time, Ning Xuanwu murmured in his heart, and could not help but retreat. However, when he remembered that one of his two disciples had no bones, and the other was used to feed the dog, he couldn't hold his breath. Then listen to my instructions. First send a dead soldier to inquire. Obviously, Ning Xuanwu is not a brainless person. After much deliberation, this decision was made. Well, the weather is nice today. In the yard, Yi Feng was lying on the reclining chair, basking and raising his eyes lazily. How pleasant. Master, the sanitation in the hall has been cleaned. What else do you want to tell me? This is the first time the martial arts hall has been cleaned. Zhang Qing worked tirelessly for 2 days to get the sanitation done. Yi Feng glanced at Zhang Qing with relief. This kid is really obedient. That rag cloth seems to be pretty good. Don't waste it. You can hang it outside the door to dry it, and you can continue to use it later. Yi Feng commanded softly. Yes, master. Oh, by the way, the weather was quite humid a few days ago, so let's take down the 18 paintings in the front hall and dry them, but if you want to paint, you should dry them in the yard. It's not good if the wind blows them away. Yi Feng ordered again. Although these paintings don't seem to be useful for birds, and they are not worth a lot of money, but it is still good to use them as decorations in the hanging hall to decorate the decoration of his martial arts hall. Zhang Qing obediently obeyed the orders. First, the 18 pictures were removed and dried in the yard, and after wiping the wall on which the paintings were hung with a rag, the rag was dried at the entrance of the martial arts hall. Call. At this time, the figure flashed and fell into the darkness. It was the people of Ning Xuanwu and Xuanwu sect, and there was a pale-faced young man beside him. Obviously, the young man was the dead man they chose to go to the martial arts hall to inquire about the news. Don't worry, if you can't come back, I will give the best treatment to your family and friends, and if you can come back, I will directly promote you to become a direct disciple, and you can choose one of all the elders to apprentice. Ning Xuanwu shot. He patted the young man on the shoulder and instructed him. Master, look at you. However, just after he finished his instructions, Yao Linger's hurried voice came from beside him. Following Yao Linger's instructions, Ning Xuanwu immediately turned his gaze to the door of the martial arts hall, and his expression suddenly changed. There, a rag is hanging, dirty and twisted. Hiss. Cloak of swiftness. As soon as he saw this scene, Ning Xuanwu suddenly exploded. Although he had said it from Yao Linger, but he saw with his own eyes that his beloved treasure was being hung there as a rag, and he was burning with anger. Provocative. Red Guguo's provocation. It's just too inconsiderate. You son of a fool, I swear I won't be a human if I don't kill you. 1. In an instant, Ning Xuanwu burst into a storm, and as soon as the soles of his feet chopped off the ground, he was about to kill him at the martial arts hall. Quiet your anger. Relieve your anger, master. Yao Linger's face changed greatly, and she quickly stopped Ning Xuanwu. Why are you stopping me? This person is so deceiving. He just doesn't care about my Xuanwu sect. Get out of the way. Ning Xuanwu shouted angrily, wishing to rush in immediately and take the martial arts hall out of the way. Raised to the ground. Master, you must be calm and be careful. Yao Linger said earnestly. It is very likely that he hung the swift cloak there deliberately to provoke our reaction, and then laid a trap. I'm being fooled. Ning Xuanwu looked at him. If the master is deceived, then he will really fall into the trap of the scoundrel. It is very likely that the two senior brothers of that day also entered the trap. Seeing that Ning Xuanwu was hesitant, Yao Linger continued to persuade solemnly. Hearing this, Ning Xuanwu also suddenly reacted. Isn't this provocation just an obvious intention? Can't help but. There was also a look of fear on his face. Sloppy. He sighed, holding back his anger and looking at the dead man. Don't worry, the deity's words are counted, you can rest assured and go boldly. Ning Xuanwu said, the glorious and arduous question of inquiring about the martial arts hall will be handed over to you. The young dead man gritted his teeth, please rest assured, sect master, and make sure to complete the mission. Remember, don't attract that person's attention, and don't show any hostility. The main thing is to inquire about the news. Yaolinger solemnly reminded, you must be careful. The dead man nodded, and under the eyes of Ning Xuanwu and others, he carefully walked towards the martial arts hall. Approaching the door, he stopped for a moment. The cloak of swiftness was just hanging next to him as a rag. The sky-shaking stone is under his feet. Holding back his nervousness, he breathed a sigh of relief, and he stepped over the earthquake stone. Kind of bullshit. Suddenly, he understood a little, why the person inside put the shocking stone here to fill the steps. Next step. Step into the front hall. Inside, there is nothing extraordinary, nothing outstanding, no different from ordinary martial arts halls, even, not comparable to other martial arts halls. It seems that there is no danger. Teacher, why did you take this plaque down? Yi Feng asked Zhang Qing while petting his dog in the yard. Master, I saw a lot of dust on it, so I removed it and wiped it, but there are still some water stains on it, so I put it here to dry for the time being. After drying, I will reinstall it. Zhang Qing replied softly. Yes, not bad. Yi Feng nodded in appreciation. This Zhang Qing was much more careful than him, and did everything well. Is there anyone please? Just then, a voice came from the front hall. Hey, are there any guests? The unfamiliar voice surprised Yi Feng. He is here, but he hasn't come to business for a long time. When he got up and walked out, he found that it was a young man who was similar to himself. He couldn't help but ask, hello, is there anything wrong? When the dead man saw Yi Feng, his heart suddenly trembled. Senior Sister Yaolinger was probably talking about this person, right? Sweat involuntarily wet the back. However, he still forced himself to ask calmly, hello, how is Xuanwuzong going? But no matter how cautious he is, there are times when he is negligent, and Xuanwuzong is almost blurted out by him. It's over, he secretly said, and his face became bloodless, because when he said this, wouldn't it mean that his identity was exposed? For a time, he looked at Yi Feng nervously with his eyes narrowed into pinholes, and even thought of the situation where Yi Feng slapped him to death. However, Yi Feng did nothing, and was even a little disappointed in his heart. It turned out to be asking for directions. I thought it was shopping or visiting a teacher. His martial arts gym was too unsuccessful, but his helpfulness didn't show anything on his face, so he politely told him. Probably road. Yi Feng's blandness was beyond the corpse's expectations. There is no response. I showed such a big flaw and didn't react at all. He was a little confused. Looking at Yi Feng, it's unremarkable, ordinary like a mortal, is he really a master? It seems that the sect master and the others seem to have guessed wrong. This is not a master at all, but a mediocre mortal. Thinking of this, he simply became bolder and said, you are quite lonely here, I'm afraid there are not many apprentices. After speaking, his eyes narrowed into pinholes and looked at Yi Feng. I have to say that he was able to be sent as a dead man to inquire about this place. In addition to having enough courage, he also had a lot of scheming. Although he showed flaws and made mistakes before, it did not affect his scheming. What he asked was just right. There is a trace of sarcasm on the bright side. If he really made a mistake in his estimation, this person is really a master, and he will definitely show some actions, such as being angry, showing his aura, stunning and staring. In the same way, he also left a way out for himself, because these words would not let the other party go straight to the killer. And if there is no response, it means that this person is really not a master. Hearing this, Yi Feng's face was a little unnatural. But what this guy said. It's really good, his shop is so deserted, and he has nothing to say. Really, when the dead man who looked at Yi Feng saw this, he couldn't help sneering in his heart. This man did nothing, and he didn't have any of the things of a master, and he suddenly had a definition in his heart. Yaolinger and Ning Xuanwu's assessment was wrong, this is a mortal without the slightest strength. As for the deaths of Wuchen and Wufang, there might be some misunderstanding. He boldly greeted a few more words, and walked out swaggeringly without encountering any danger. At this point, he further confirmed the thoughts in his heart. He is also quite proud of his own line of work. After sending the young man away, he had just returned to the courtyard and sat down when another voice came from outside the door. Yi Feng smiled helplessly. He knew who it was just by hearing this voice, and walked out the door to take a look. Really, it was the dying middle school old man, Wu Yonghong, who loved to play chess and repay food. However, what surprised Yi Feng this time was that it was not only old man Wu who came, but 3 old men who were about the same age as him. After looking at the 3 old men for a while, Yi Feng pouted subconsciously. It looks like a greeting. One of them was as skinny as a wood, black and not lost, and he didn't know whether he was malnourished since childhood or what. The whole person probably weighed less than 60 pounds. This weak appearance made Yi Feng afraid to touch him. In case he stumbled, it's gone with a quack, and this trouble can't be caused. The other one is a little better, but that outfit is really unflattering. The whole body is covered with things that I don't know if it is chicken bones or something, especially the big thumb with a skull on the thumb. Otherworldly, non-mainstream. As for the last one, it doesn't look like a poor man. A mouthful of big golden teeth, a big abacus hanging behind it, 2 broken eggs still rubbing in his hands, and his head held high, revealing an unpredictable look. Although this dress has a bit of a feeling, its temperament is still 10,000. Thousands of miles. Of course, the visitor is the guest. Although these old men had long exchanged their greetings, Yi Feng would not judge people by their appearance. However, what surprised Yi Feng a little was that these stumbling old men were very mysterious. They didn't see them when they sent the young man who asked the way to leave, and they appeared all of a sudden. It's weird. Mr. Yi. Wu Yonghong bowed his hands to Yi Feng and greeted him respectfully. Obviously, after the last time, he even changed his name for Yi Feng. Long time no see, come in and sit. Yi Feng waved with a smile. Yes. Wu Yonghong nodded excitedly. He was quite nervous at first. After all, he brought 3 strangers without saying hello, for fear of causing Yi Feng's displeasure. Now it seems that Yi Feng's mind is much wider than he imagined. Come on, sir, please let us in. Thinking of this, old man Wu hurriedly pushed the other 3. But the 3 of them did not move forward, but instead looked at Wu Yonghong with questioning eyes. When they came, they heard Wu Yonghong boast how powerful Yi Feng was, and they could even easily take out the holy rake, so they believed them 7 or 8 points along the way, and came with a respectful attitude. But take a look. Not at all. The young man in front of him, no matter how you look at it, is immortal. Hey, what do you want me to tell you? Wu Yonghong said anxiously. Don't say you can't see through his cultivation, neither can I. Okay, even if it's what you said, but you never said that he has a plaque with martial intent. Where is the plaque? The scrawny old man asked again. This. Wu Yonghong looked a little embarrassed, and when he looked, he found that the door was empty. This, it may be that Mr. temporarily took it down. Let's not worry about this. Since Mr. invited us in, let's hurry in. Wu Yonghong said anxiously. The 3 still hesitated. Who are the 3 of them? If this place is really a master, that's all, but if it's just a mortal, how can they be qualified to be seated? You are really. Wu Yonghong pointed at the 3 angrily and said, we have been so many years, do I still lie to you? I really don't believe it. Go in and have a look, and you'll know. The 3 heard the words and looked at each other. Wu Yonghong really doesn't seem to be lying, and the holy rake in his hand can't be faked. Since it's here, it's no big deal to go in and take a look. The group of 4 walked towards the martial arts hall. Wu Yonghong was a little nervous. There are also some expectations. After all, he was also entering Yi Feng's cave for the first time, so he was very curious about what was inside. But as soon as he came to the door, Wu Yonghong's body suddenly shook. Then looked down. He opened his eyes sharply. When the old men accompanying him saw this, they looked at them with disapproval. Isn't it just a broken stone? What's so beautiful? After seeing it clearly, several people's bodies were stunned. The bosses with their mouths open, their eyes flashing with disbelief. The stone under Wu Yonghong's feet seems to be a shocking stone. And looking at this place, it seems that it is only used to fill in the steps. The 4 of them looked at each other and took a breath. They filled the steps with shocking stones. What a big hand. Although there is no shortage of such treasures in their hands, the gentian stone is also a treasure of the emperor, and it is usually placed carefully and even used as a whole card. However, this person is used to fill in the steps. Just when the four were shocked, the old abacus saw something inadvertently, and his heart suddenly froze. When the others saw this, they quickly turned their attention to the past. Gah! Several people's eyeballs almost fell. Another royal treasure. Cloak of Swiftness. It's just, why is this swift cloak so messed up and dirty, just hanging there? Seeing these old men walking slowly, Yi Feng, who was walking in front, looked back and saw these old men staring at a rag, which was very strange. Several old brothers, just a rag, what's so beautiful? Yi Feng couldn't help but ask in confusion. Wipe, rag. Yi Feng's words almost made several people's jaws drop. Shocking stone fills the steps. Cloak of Swiftness is a rag. Gee, this handwriting. If you don't take imperial treasures in your eyes, you must be a martial arts powerhouse. In the hearts of the four, there was a definition in an instant. Knowing that Yi Feng is a strong martial artist, the attitude of the three old men brought by Wu Yonghong changed 180 degrees, becoming extremely respectful, and at the same time staring at Wu Yonghong and complaining, "Well, you old man Wu, why not beforehand? Tell us clearly." "That's right, I almost offended this martial saint master just now. HMPH, if our attitude just now made Senior Wu Sheng angry, we can't spare you. You guys, you are spitting blood." Wu Yonghong's face was ashen, and he muttered in a low voice, "Did the old man say anything? Did he say anything on the road? It was 1,000 warnings and 10,000 orders, obviously you yourself did not believe it." Humph. The three old men snorted angrily and followed Yi Feng in a respectful manner. "I have seen Master." As soon as he walked into the front hall, he found that Zhang Qing was carrying a ladder and rehanging the 18 pictures of magic soldiers that he had taken down before. At this moment, he just hung the last one and walked down the stairs. "Teacher has worked hard, there are guests here, help me move some stools." Yi Feng commanded softly. "Yes, Master." Zhang Qing obediently walked inside to move the stool. Yi Feng turned his head and said with a smile, "It's a little crowded because there's something drying in there, so just sit in the front hall." "You're welcome, sir." The four old men nodded their heads and finally stepped into the front hall. 18 pictures of the divine soldiers instantly magnified in their eyes, and the monstrous martial intent and the power of the heavenly way shrouded the entire front hall with a formidable coercion. What? Seeing this scene, the four old men froze in place almost at the same time. At this moment, the monstrous martial intent and the power of heaven's way allowed them to absorb great benefits, and found that the cultivation realm that had been stuck for hundreds of years was actually loosened at this moment. Who is this person? At this moment, even Wu Yonghong himself was stunned. Just now, he thought that Yi Feng was a martial arts master, one level higher than his martial sect, but now it seems that it is more than a martial arts. This, Emperor Wu. However, Emperor Wu did not seem to have such a big hand. Could such a big hand be the immortal warrior from the upper world? Fairy. Call. A breath of fresh air. The word is simply out of reach for them. When they thought that Yi Feng might be an immortal warrior from the upper world, the four of them felt that their blood was boiling. No wonder he looked like immortal. It was only now that the four of them suddenly realized that they finally found the reason why they couldn't see through Yi Feng's cultivation. "Please sit down." The stool was brought up, Yi Feng handed it to them, and at the same time said, "You guys stay here for a while, I'll go and pour some water for you." After speaking, Yi Feng walked towards the backyard. The moment Yi Feng left, the four old men exploded. Martial intent, such a powerful martial intent. I have never seen such a powerful martial intent. The realm that I have been stuck on for hundreds of years has loosened. Yes, I am also loose, which is also accompanied by the power of heaven. Quote. Shan Wuzan, he must be a Shan Wuzan. I really didn't expect that he could still be in contact with Shan Wuzan. For a time, the four of them were excited and burst into tears. The monstrous martial intent and the power of heaven contained in this wall painting have brought them great benefits. But after a while, the four of them felt a little uncomfortable. I feel that I can't hold it anymore. The old abacus said first. This martial intent is too strong, I can only understand so much, and then sit down, I will go crazy. Yes, I can't hold it anymore. The thin old man also said, it's a pity, obviously such a big opportunity, but I can't eat it. Why don't you just sit outside? Old man Wu also said with sweat on his face. As soon as his voice fell, the skeleton old man carried the stool and ran out. Although the other people were full of reluctance, they knew that they couldn't eat it at all, and they quickly sat outside the door on their stools. Hey, why did you guys go outside the door? Yi Feng came out with the water and asked suspiciously. Hearing this, several people looked at Yi Feng with gratitude and embarrassment at the same time. Knowing that this was an opportunity given to them by Yi Feng, the shameful thing was that they were incapable of being able to bear it for such a moment, so they had to explain with a bitter face that the scenery outside is good, the scenery outside is good. Yes, the scenery is good. The rest of the people also kept laughing. All right, Yi Feng nodded, and could understand these old men. After all, he was old enough to bask in the sun. After putting down the water, he said, play 2 chess, you wait, I'll get it. Good. The 4 were busy nodding their heads. At this moment, Zhang Qing came with the dried plaque, took out the ladder and hung it up. Almost in an instant, the 4 of them felt a powerful martial intent emanating from the plaque. Fortunately, the martial intent of the plaque was not as strong as that in the front hall, so it would not be unbearable. Unable to help, the 4 old men have golden stars in their eyes. Full of gratitude, it seems that this senior knew that they could not understand the martial intent of the front hall, and he deliberately hung the plaque for them to understand. It's so kind. This is a great favor. Absolutely can't live up to the kindness of the predecessors. The 4 burst into tears. He quickly moved the small bamboo stools into a row, and sat obediently, feeling the martial intent on the plaque. In a courtyard, this is a temporary stronghold after Xuanwuzong came to Pingjiang City. In the hall, extremely quiet, Ning Xuanwu sat on the top with a gloomy face. Yao Linger and other high-level officials also sat on the side without saying a word, all waiting for the news of the dead soldiers sent out. Master, do you think he will be able to come back successfully? Finally, Yao Linger couldn't sit still, she raised her eyebrows and asked. Ning Xuanwu remained silent, but in my heart, I also have no bottom. During the time when the dead man went to inquire about the news, he calmed down a lot, and he thought about it a lot. Although he is a master, he knows from the bottom of his heart that the talents of the 2 disciples, Jing Wuchen and Jing Wufang, are stronger than him, far surpassing him when he was young, and now he has reached the realm of martial arts. Wuling. In the entire Nansha, it is also an existence that cannot be underestimated. In addition, with the sky-shattering stone and the swift cloak in hand, as long as you don't encounter the kind of old monster who has stepped into the martial king for many years, there is actually a chance to escape. That is to say, if he wants to kill Jing Wuchen and Jing Wufang, even if he does it himself, it is not easy. However, in the hands of the 2 people, there were no bones left. In addition, Heaven-Shaking Stone and Speedy Cloak are imperial treasures, not to mention King Wu. Even Emperor Wu is considered a treasure. Why is that person so disregarded? Just to humiliate his Xuanwu sect? It is unlikely. After all, these are 2 royal treasures. And the biggest possibility is that that person really doesn't take the Sky-Shocking Stone and the Speedy Cloak in his eyes. When I think about these 2 logic points, that person's strength is at least an old martial king who has broken through for many years, more likely martial emperor, or even martial emperor above martial emperor, martial saint. But no matter what kind of situation, Ning Xuanwu did not have much confidence to face it. Think about it. His face became more gloomy. At the same time, I don't think the dead man can come back safely. Seeing Ning Xuanwu's appearance, the hall fell into silence for a time, and everyone's faces were full of solemnity. Obviously, Ning Xuanwu can figure out this problem, and everyone can think of it. There is a high probability that the dead man will not come back. However, just when everyone's morale was low, the servants came to report directly. Report to Sect Master, Shu Kun is back. Hearing this, everyone's expressions froze, and they all got up and rushed outside. For them, this news is simply a surprise. Sure enough, when he came to the door, he saw Shu Kun, who was sent to be a dead soldier. At this moment, a smile was drawn on the corner of his mouth, and he was quite energetic. This line, it's really complete. Not to mention the slightest danger, he can also make him jump the Dragon Gate and become a direct disciple in one fell swoop. How's it going? Ning Xuanwu and others anxiously greeted him and asked him quickly. Reporting to the sect master, to all the elders, I am fortunate to not be disgraced. Shu Kun said to the crowd with a smile on his face, I have already checked it out, that person has no strength, just an ordinary mortal. Oh, hearing this, everyone showed disbelief. The gap between the news and their guesses was too much. You didn't lie. Ning Xuanwu frowned, and with a hint of coercion, he enveloped Shu Kun in the past. The disciple dares to swear with his life that he never lied, so there must be some misunderstanding in the death of the two senior brothers Jing Wuchen, and I even suspect that they are not dead yet. Under the power of Ning Xuanwu, Shu Kun quickly raised his palm and said, and then told what happened in the martial arts hall one by one. Hearing this, everyone nodded in unison. In this way, things should really be what Shu Kunshu said. A mortal, actually a mortal. Ning Xuanwu clenched his fists tightly, and an aura of anger erupted from his body. He didn't expect that they had been fighting wits and courage for so long, and the object was actually a small mortal, which was a shame to him. Since that's the case, the old man will personally go out and slap him to death. No matter if he is a blind eye from Qingshanmen, I will call him fly ash and obliterate. After a sneer, Ning Xuanwu swept out angrily and headed for the martial arts hall. Seeing this, the others also rushed up. Soon, headed by Ning Xuanwu, he soon came to a dark place not far from the gate of the Xiaowu Pavilion. Humph, little mortal actually wastes the deity's time for so long to see how I can make him into a patty. Ning Xuanwu said angrily. Master, I think we should be careful for a second. It's best to verify whether the news that Shu Kun got is accurate, right? Yaolinger frowned and said worriedly. Humph, a little mortal, you actually told me to be careful. Ning Xuanwu said angrily. Master, I always feel that something is not normal, and you see. Yaolinger looked sharply at the martial arts hall, and said solemnly, this martial arts hall is clearly under our surveillance. Don't you think it's strange that a few old men suddenly sat in front of the door? HMPH, this is just a negligence of your surveillance. Ning Xuanwu said disdainfully. And there are many mortal relatives, these old men are nothing more than the role of the second uncle and the third uncle. In my eyes, no matter whether he is the second uncle or the third uncle, he is just a mortal, and he is an ant-like existence. Ning Xuanwu snorted angrily, feeling extremely unsightly at the existence of this martial arts hall. His aura was revealed, his body dragged an afterimage in midair, and he shrouded the martial arts hall with a huge power. In the blink of an eye, he reached the sky above the martial arts hall. The four people who were comprehending the martial intent on the woozy plaque suddenly opened their eyes when they felt the fluctuation of breath from the top of their heads. Four straight eyes shot towards Ning Xuanwu, who in the end had the guts to attack this martial arts hall, and what's even more abhorrent is that he actually disturbed them to feel the martial intent. However, the furious Ning Xuanwu directly ignored the gazes of the four. For four mortal old men, let's destroy everything with this broken martial arts hall. And, die. With a sneer, the palm with a powerful momentum turned over in the air, and a monstrous palm print was covered with it. This behavior directly stimulated the rage of the four of Wu Yonghong, and the four suddenly stood up, and the vast and profound Wuzong aura erupted from the four of them. Just the impact of this momentum, the entire sky instantly became depressed. Wuzong, and Ning Xuanwu, who was in midair, felt these four powerful auras. His face changed drastically, he stuttered when he spoke, and his eyes were about to pop out. The four sitting at the entrance of the martial arts hall were actually four martial sects. He was a little martial king, and he slapped the four Wuzongs with one palm. Isn't this a head iron? Next moment, he seemed to have noticed something again, and the cold sweat broke out immediately. That abacus is the celestial treasure celestial disc. There is only one person who owns this treasure, and that is the life-threatening abacus Li Moqi. And that unique outfit covered in bones. It also suddenly reminded Ning Xuanwu of a character, a peerless madman who slaughtered the sect after the sect was convicted, and polished the skulls of the senior sects into handicrafts to hang on his body, Chu Shikuang. The other thin man seemed to be the legendary Sun Tzu who had broken his small meridians and then practiced evil arts to change his life. The last one holding a rake like a farmer, seems to be the Wu Yonghong who was deceived in a certain city, slaughtered the whole city in a fit of rage, and then silenced the ruins. Recognizing the identities of these people, Ning Xuanwu felt that he was about to cry. These 4 madmen who had long silenced the ruins, actually arrived at the entrance of this martial arts hall at the same time. What happened? In front of these 4, he was a little king of martial arts, just like a younger brother. When he was famous, Ning Xuanwu was still wearing open crotch pants. Almost in an instant, he, who was still full of momentum just now, is like a refreshing eggplant, yeah. Ignoring the backlash against me, I forcibly took away my attack, not even daring to look at the 4 of them, rolled in midair, and then ran away. I have to say that Ning Xuanwu's movements in these series are smooth and smooth. He was sweating profusely, and he just wanted to escape the sight of the 4 as soon as possible. But the next moment, his face changed greatly, and he felt a chill down his spine. An aura that made him unable to break free came toward the spreading package, locked him in place out of thin air, and then pulled him back from the air. Almost instantly, Ning Xuanwu was pulled back, and 4 meaningful gazes stared at him. Ning Xuanwu was nervous. Cold sweat broke out on his forehead, and he was about to jump out of his heart. It's been many years, and I haven't tried this kind of fear for many years. Obviously, his treasure-shocking stone is under his feet, and the speedy cloak is also hanging aside, so he can easily get it, but he dare not take a look. Haha, I've seen 4 seniors, and I don't know what the 4 seniors are looking for from me. Under the gaze of the 4, Ning Xuanwu's scalp was numb, and he said with a smile that was uglier than crying. It's not that we have anything to do with you, but it seems that you just said you were going to shoot us to death. Wu Yonghong looked at him with gloomy eyes and asked leisurely. These sarcastic words made Ning Xuanwu's heart jump suddenly, and he explained anxiously. No, 4 seniors, calm down. How dare I shoot at 4 seniors? I just want to shoot this Xiaowu Hall, but I don't want the 4 seniors to sit here to clean up, so I still look to Senior Haihan. After explaining, Ning Xuanwu breathed a sigh of relief. Although these 4 have weird temperaments, they are also a martial king, and they stopped in time. Now that they have explained things clearly, they should not be too embarrassing for him, right? However, what he didn't expect was that at the moment when his voice fell, the 4 of them stood up almost invariably, and a strong coercion shrouded them. It carries a strong killing intent. Ning Xuanwu shook his head. Confused, what's going on? I've clearly explained it. It doesn't matter if you don't let me go. Why does it show such a strong killing intent? You said, you want to destroy this martial arts hall. Li Moqi narrowed his eyes and asked in a hoarse voice. At the same time as the question, the vitality in his hand has already condensed, and he is ready to attack Ning Xuanwu at any time when he is ready to move. Done. Say the wrong thing. Ning Xuanwu understood in an instant. Looking at the attack that Li Moqi had brewed, he no longer cared about his identity and made a crisp sound. Kneel straight with your legs on the ground. He sweated profusely and said, misunderstanding, 4 seniors, I was joking just now, I was just passing by. Passing by, misunderstand, but you just said that you are going to shoot this martial arts hall. The 4 old men looked at Ning Xuanwu condescendingly, and said in an icy voice, if this is the case, if they dare to offend Mr. Senior, you heard it wrong, really wrong. Ning Xuanwu begged for mercy, sweating profusely. I don't mean to shoot this martial arts hall, but to shoot the mosquitoes in this martial arts hall. Saying that, put your hands together. Snapped. He really killed a mosquito, as if he saw a savior, and regardless of whether the 4 believed it or not, he squeezed the mosquito in his hand and shouted, Senior, look, it's really a mosquito. The 4 looked at each other with sneer. They are not fools. How could such low-level lies deceive them? But he didn't do anything to Ning Xuanwu, because after all, this is in the husband's territory. Seeing that the 4 of them didn't do anything, Ning Xuanwu hurriedly breathed a sigh of relief. But the coercion brought by the 4 of them was still there. They didn't speak, and Ning Xuanwu didn't dare to speak. He could only kneel on the ground with his head lowered. The autumn wind blows, and his figure is bleak. But in his heart, he was furious. Shu Kun, wipe the 18th generation of your ancestors, and when the deity returns, you must destroy your whole family. At this time, he still didn't understand that the masters of this martial arts hall were these 4 people. Otherwise, how could the four of them show such strong killing intent when he said that he was going to shoot this martial arts hall? And Jing Wuchen and Jing Wufang, I am afraid they also touched the mold of these four people and were wiped out. As for the sky-shocking stone and the swift cloak, although it is a bit cruel for these four to fill the steps and use it as a rag, but at least it is still in the past. Blame this Shu Quan. If you didn't inquire and come back with fake news, how could this deity be so embarrassed? Knowing that it was the martial arts hall of these four people, he wouldn't dare to come here. Even if the sky-shocking stone and the speedy cloak were gone, he would only break his teeth and swallow it in his stomach. In the dark, Yao Ling and the others, who were watching the movement of the martial arts hall, opened their mouths wide and covered their red lips, watching their boss obediently kneeling on the ground. That respectful appearance made everyone's heart a complex one. But it also dawned on me that things are not that simple. However, although Ning Xuanwu thought a lot in his heart, he didn't dare to show half of it on his face, and he still looked at Wu Yonghong and the four people on his knees. Are you Ning Xuanwu of the Xuanwu sect? Finally, Chu Guangxi glanced at Ning Xuanwu and asked. It's my senior. Ning Xuanwu planted his head and replied nervously. Even if your family's Ning Jutian didn't die, I wouldn't dare to make trouble here. I can't think of a junior like you. Chu Guang said with a cold smile. It's true that the blue is better than the blue. These sarcastic words made Ning Xuanwu's face flush, but he did not dare to refute. I don't know where to put the chess. It took me a long time to find it. At this time, Yi Feng came out of the front hall and said apologetically. Heard. The four Wu Yonghong stood up suddenly, bowed their heads and shouted respectfully, I have seen Mr. Gentlemen, are these four actually called Mr. Ning Xuanwu, who was kneeling on the ground, looked at Yi Feng who walked out, and his mouth suddenly grew. Why did the four martial arts masters call this young man so respectfully as Mr. Could it be that this martial arts hall is not owned by Wu Yonghong and the four? Is the young man in front of him the real behind the scenes? Can't help but. He remembered what Yao Ling said. It was this young man who ordered the people to use the swift cloak as a rag, and it was this young man who used Jing Wufeng's bones as a dog's ration. Thinking of this, Ning Xuanwu felt extremely unbelievable. But no matter how incredible he was, he felt that the answer was inseparable. Not to mention the respect of the four Wu Yonghong to Yi Feng. As a martial king, he found that he could not see through the strength of the young master in front of him. Like a mortal, it may seem unremarkable, but it is actually unfathomable. Thinking of this, he took a deep breath. Sir, he's here. After greeting Yi Feng, Wu Yonghong said respectfully, apparently wanting to report Ning Xuanwu's matter. Needless to say, I know. Yi Feng waved his hand and said with a smile. Sir is amazing, but we talk too much. The four Wu Yonghong looked at each other and bowed their heads respectfully. It seems that Mr. is Mr., and even if he is no longer here, he already knows what's going on here. Nothing to talk about. Yi Feng smiled. When he just walked out the door, he just heard Chu Guangxi teaching the uncle who was kneeling on the ground, listening to the seniors and juniors. It is estimated that they are teaching the juniors. Old man. It is understandable to see the younger generation grab a lesson, but I just don't know what wrong this uncle made. And Ning Xuanwu, who was kneeling beside him, also opened his mouth wide, and at the same time his bowels were blue with regret. There was deep fear in his eyes. He has now confirmed that the mysterious young man in front of him is an old monster older than Wu Yonghong and others. When he thought of offending such a person, he felt a chill down his spine and his face was as pale as a piece of paper. Today, he is afraid to explain it here. It's fine, just deal with it. Yi Feng said indifferently. Even if it was at the entrance of his martial arts hall, it would have no effect on him. We deal with it. The four Wu Yonghong were slightly surprised and looked at each other. They didn't expect that Yi Feng would directly hand over Ning Xuanwu to them. However, it is also true that a small martial king might not be enough to let Mr. But, how should we deal with it? The four of you look at me, I look at you, no one can pay attention, they can only look at Yi Feng. Why are you looking at me? Yi Feng asked silently. Cough, sir, we just want to ask, based on what you see, how should we deal with it? Wu Yonghong asked nervously. On the side, Ning Xuanwu, whose face was pale, also looked over. He, who was usually majestic in the Xuanwu sect, has actually become pitiful. He understands that his life can be completely controlled by Yi Feng. Ask me. Yi Feng rubbed his nose. Quite speechless. Your own juniors want to teach a lesson. Ask me what this irrelevant person is doing. Seeing how the four old men kept asking, Yi Feng had no choice but to say, I have nothing to say, but what I mean is that since I make a mistake, I will definitely bear the corresponding consequences. Of course, I have to give him a chance when dealing with juniors. Whether he can become an adult after the lesson depends on his own creation. After speaking, Yi Feng looked at the sky and thought that it was almost time to cook. After all, Zhang Qing has been busy all day alone, and it is reasonable for him as a master to help him occasionally share the burden. Besides, they are teaching the younger generation, and it is not good for him to be around. After Yi Feng left, the four Wu Yonghong pondered Yi Feng's words, then looked at each other and nodded solemnly. Obviously, the meaning of Mr. is already obvious. Then, four pairs of gloomy eyes fell on Ning Xuanwu. Ning Xuanwu shivered suddenly, sweating profusely. Storage bag, take it out first. Wu Yonghong stretched out his palm and said in a deep voice. Predecessor, senior, is this unnecessary? Ning Xuanwu said with an ugly face. Wu Yonghong's voice sank, squinted and said, didn't you hear what Mr. said just now? Okay. Ning Xuanwu gritted his teeth and took out the storage bag with a face full of reluctance. Inside, except for the last treasure on his body, it is the resource of the entire Xuanwu sect. When the bag was snatched by Wu Yonghong, Ning Xuanwu's heart was bleeding. Wu Yonghong opened the storage bag and looked at it, nodded with satisfaction, and handed it to Chu Guangxi, then instructed, you take it first, and give it to Mr. After he finished speaking, he looked at Ning Xuanwu again and said in a deep voice, get up first. Hearing this, Ning Xuanwu just got up. Looking at the faces of the four, he asked nervously, the four seniors, can I go now? After speaking, he raised his legs and couldn't wait to leave this place. However, he just mentioned. When he started, a coercion attacked him again. Walk, didn't you hear what Mr. just said? Wu Yonghong asked angrily, and while speaking, he glanced at Sun Zug, a thin old man. Seeing this, Sun Zug smiled coldly, waved his palm, and a black mist filled Ning Xuanwu's direction, immediately covering his entire palm. This is my celestial poison, and it will permeate my entire body from my arms within 3 days. What? Heavenly evil poison. When Ning Xuanwu heard the words, his face was as pale as paper, and he looked at the black mist that filled his arms, as if he had seen something terrifying. You heard it yourself. This is what Mr. said. It didn't take your life directly. Of course, whether you can still stand as a person can only depend on your good fortune. Get out. With a wave of his arm, Ning Xuanwu flew upside down. The body fell heavily on the ground, and Ning Xuanwu spit out a mouthful of blood, but he didn't care about the injuries on his body, and ran away as soon as his body was swept away. He was really afraid of being pulled back again, he just wanted to stay away from this martial arts hall. After all, the coercion these four old men brought him was really terrifying. Of course, the most terrifying thing is the mysterious young man. Although he does not expose mountains or waters, this feeling of incomprehensible and intangible is often the most uncomfortable. And this trip, he is really bloody. Why take revenge for Jing Wuchen and Jing Wufeng? Take back the Zhenshan stone speedy cloak. Not to mention that, Tai Niang's little life was almost lost. The key is that the resources of the entire Xuanwu sect were also taken away. The most hateful thing is, he glanced at the black mist that permeated his right arm, and he felt like dying for a while. This arm was chopped off by Lu Qingshan some time ago. Before he came to Pingzhong City, he used the secret method of Zongzong, used a lot of resources, and even spent a part of his life essence so that this arm was finally reborn from the broken bone. But who knows, what did he do when he ran here? He just killed a mosquito and suffered such a devastation. Well, when he thought about it, his heart ached. But life is the most important thing. Sun Zug's poison is not an ordinary thing. If he doesn't cut off this arm, he will die suddenly in less than 3 days. After struggling for a long time, he finally gritted his teeth and chopped off his arm with a face full of reluctance. Looking at the arm that fell to the ground, Ning Xuanwu became angrier the more he thought about it, and the more he thought about it, the more angry he became. His body turned into an afterimage and swept in the direction of Yao Linger and the others. Master, Metropolitan. Everyone hurried over to greet him, looking at Ning Xuanwu's missing arm. His face was full of solemnity and complexity. Where's Shu Kun? Ning Xuanwu said angrily. Zong, Zong sect master, misunderstanding. Shu Kun hid behind Yao Linger, his whole body trembling and his face full of grief, he explained. Misunderstand. Ning Xuanwu gritted his teeth, stretched out his arm, grabbed Shu Kun's neck and twisted it in his hand. Crack. Under extreme anger, Ning Xuanwu directly twisted Shu Kun's neck without saying a word, and then threw it directly on the ground. I misunderstood you. It seemed that he was still angry after killing Shu Quan. Ning Xuanwu stepped on Shu Kun's corpse again and again. Under his absolute strength, the corpse was trampled into mud. Seeing Ning Xuanwu's rage, Yao Linger and others beside him lowered their heads, not daring to catch a breath. But also, anyone who encounters this kind of thing is probably not much better, not to mention that Ning Xuanwu is usually the lord of the Xuanwu sect. Sect master, what shall we do next? After a long time, seeing that Ning Xuanwu's anger seemed to dissipate a little, an elder raised his chin slightly and asked, do you want to continue to take revenge? As soon as he heard the word revenge, Ning Xuanwu's expression twitched, and his face was somber that water could come out. There are still sky-shattering stone and speedy cloak, do you still want to get them back? The elder asked again. Seeing this, the others immediately cast pity on him. It really is a pot that cannot be opened without mentioning. Sure enough, Ning Xuanwu's anger that had just subsided rushed directly to his forehead, and he slapped the elder directly into flesh. I let you push. After being slapped to death with a slap, he savagely destroyed the elder's corpse before giving up. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.